Hello and welcome to Infamous, the audio podcast. This is Brandon, or Mutilus on Discord.
This is Parker, go by One Who Parks on Discord.
This is Aaron, I go by Treffenwood.
Aaron, I need you to be honest with me. Did you forget Jeremy was not on the cast today?
I was pretending like I was waiting for him.
Aww.
But then I forgot you were just going to condense the pause anyway, so it's fucking irrelevant.
So you're just gonna sound like a weirdo.
You poured one out for him. That's cute. I like it.
So Jeremy, if you're listening, there was a good pause where I
Uh-huh.
gave you your 45 seconds to do your personal intro.
Yeah, we gave it a moment. We gave you a moment of silence. That was nice.
All right. So we got some quick announcements. First off, Parker, you're down to 1,905 probationary episodes. Some people would call it a comeback. Some people wouldn't.
I'm excited.
Yep. One final announcement. This is your last chance, your very last chance to sign up for the Show Me Showdown in Independence, Missouri. It's going to be a fun time. Yeah, you know everything you need to know at this point. Go buy your ticket. It's showmeshowdownt.com. Showmeshowdownt.com. All right, Parker, what's next?
Not news, because we still don't got no news. So
News. It's news.
It's news, but
it
not
was
news.
Hey,
News!
Yes.
News!
All right, so for news today, I don't know if you're aware of this, we have some big news. There's still no news.
Mhm.
But in spite of the no news, we're going to do something that Aaron wanted to do today. It was Aaron's idea, really, when you think about it. It's wild speculation in place of news. Listen to the pre-ramble for more.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're basically since there hasn't been news in 12 and a half months, we're going to come up with our own news and let you know what we have put our heads together to think of. And Aaron had something. Aaron, do you want to go first, or do we all need to come up with something first?
No, I'll go first. Okay, so here is, without official news, I just want to lay this out there. I am not a playtester. I do not know any playtesters, and I have zero insider knowledge of what's going on in AMG.
Hold on, but Aaron, you would say that even if you were.
Yeah, but shit, you got me. Okay.
Damn, he's
This
been outed.
may or may not be an unofficial release right now.
Guys, I'm telling you directly that I'm not a playtester and I don't have inside information, because that's what my NDA says I have to say. Anyway, moving on to the news.
I have two items of speculative news for you. One, the August release will be a 5-threat model with grunts. And number two, despite public outcry to the contrary, there will not be a 2-threat released in 2023.
I just really hope that you guys do opposing bets, both using Parker's probationary episodes. All right, so Aaron, you feel confident in both of these?
Supremely confident, yes.
Supremely confident, that's fair. I like how quickly he's getting into wild speculation.
I really like it.
All right, Aaron.
Yeah.
Now I'm trying to remember. It was Iceman, Bishop, Kitty,
Nightcrawler, Shadow King, Professor X.
And you're saying none of those will be 2-pointers.
That is not what I said. I said there will
won't
not
be a 2-pointer.
A 2-pointer released in 2023.
So if any of those are released as 2-pointers, it won't be in 2023.
That is correct. Parker, what are your thoughts on my speculative news?
Trying to
buying or selling?
I 100%.
Does not sound like 100%.
Well, okay, so
100%
I do not.
To uncertainty.
I have a strange feeling that Ultron will not be 5 points. This is no basis in reality. It's just a feeling. I think it's going to be 6.
Take that bet.
I think it's going to be 6 points. With a grunt. I think he's going to be badass. I think he's going to be Ultron.
Parker, do you think the community would receive well back-to-back 6-point releases at this point in the game?
Who's the other 6-point release right now?
Cosmic Ghost Rider comes out on Friday.
So you're saying they'd be cool with 2 5-point releases with Kang? Because Kang's butt, everybody thought, I guess.
What are you talking about?
So they'd be okay with 2 5-point releases, but not with 2 6-point releases?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I don't honestly. I don't think that AMG gives a shit about the community's reaction to their release schedule. If they gave any shits, then we would have Fantastic Four by now. Like, period, full stop.
I don't think that's a fair
I
correlation.
think that's
but
100%.
I understand it is your belief.
No, I don't think it's when I read those Facebook
Parker,
posts,
I know it's your truth, but
I will live my truth. And when I read those Facebook posts, the second comment is always no FF ? Like, it's always every time they post something. So I think it's I don't think they give a shit about. I think their release schedule is a release schedule, and they make models according to how they want to make
I
it.
think it's a lot more complex on which models they choose to put into the game and when.
Right.
But yes, I do think there is a reason FF is not currently in. And it could be as simple as they don't want to move on and open up a whole nother genre when they still haven't completed so many.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm not saying FF should be released. I'm just saying I don't think they care if there are 2 6s back to back. We got like 8 4s back to back. Like,
well, that's because the 4-point slot was dramatically lacking. Like, I don't think anyone disagreed with that. Like, 4s were underpowered for a very long time. There was just a couple tentpole like power models that were holding up the entire 4 slot, and the rest of them were pretty lame.
Well, there aren't that many 6s. I don't think
there aren't that many, but I think releasing outlier point cost models is currently taboo in the community. Like, that people are basically ranting that expensive models are overpowered.
Yeah, but I don't think they print. They don't play test these models and print those cards within 3 months of the community ranting. They don't go, oh shit, we need to make sure the next one is a 5-pointer because they really didn't like Malekith now. Like,
that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that releasing 2, that'd be like would they release 2 8-pointers back to back? It'd just be weird, right? Like, for a schedule of releases. 2 6s back to back would just surprise me.
There are so many weird fucking parts of the release schedule for this game. I put nothing past anybody. I am going to say 6 points. And you know why 6 points? Because it's weird.
Okay.
That's, you know what else is weird? You having more than 2,000 probationary episodes. That's what's weird.
I am now betting on the side of low probability because I don't think I can guess what's going to happen in this game anymore. When the way shit gets released, Ulik came out for 5 points. Period. Full stop. Like, Ulik's in this game, and he's a 5-point model. Like, if you would have told me pick one character from the entire Marvel pantheon that will never be in Marvel Crisis Protocol, I think Ulik would have been on the top 10. I could not imagine a universe where Ulik is a model in this fucking game, and he is in the game right now as a 5-pointer, an elite solo model. Like, what? I don't get it. So I will Parker, say,
I'm fine letting you rant, but I need a quantity of episodes you're betting.
Okay. I'm going to bet 200 episodes. It's a 6-pointer when he comes out. I don't want to bet when he's coming out. I just want to bet that he's a 6-pointer.
Okay. I'll take that. 200 straight up that he'll be 6 points.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this was going to be a lot more riveting when I was like, I'll let Aaron bet that he's going to be 5. And Parker's already doubling down by saying he won't be.
I will take the bet with Aaron that there will not be a 2-pointer printed in 2023.
Okay, we're just gonna add to the list.
I'll take that. I'll do that. Aaron, how much should we bet? Since it was your idea and I like it, how much should we bet?
When you say how much of what?
How many probationary episodes do I stand to gain?
He's trying to make a bet with you instead of with me.
Ooh, do I control his episodes now?
Yeah, I'm giving you.
Well, I think you're taking the bet on his behalf. So if you lose, you get his probationary episodes. Oh. They just transfer from him to you.
Oh, so I denied the existence of probationary episodes. So that wouldn't have any effect on me.
Well, see, that's the thing is, I was actually going to just let him control how many episodes we bet on this, based upon his assuredness. I was giving him my money. I was staking him in the bet.
Oh, you're giving me your money. Okay.
Yeah, your probationary episodes.
You should
giving them to Aaron.
400 straight up episodes. There's no 2-pointer.
There's no 2s.
Deal.
Yeah.
I like his confidence, and I'm with him.
400 bet with Aaron.
No, he's betting with you.
Nah, I don't want that bet.
Oh, well, you took it. I took it on both your behalfs.
So, do I want to sponsor the bet? Do I want to bankroll Aaron in this bet? I actually think that there won't be any 2s, but man, I'm not confident in that.
I love how hard you're thinking about this. It costs you nothing to take this bet.
Keeping you in the doghouse is not nothing.
That
is a life goal.
That is true.
All right, fine. I'll take the bet.
All right.
I just know, like, next week they're gonna spoil, like, some stupid new faction. It's like, guys, the Chain Gang is coming out. It's like, so, like, all these random escaped inmates. I'm like, oh my god, like, there's gonna be so many 2s.
Well, that'd be good for you then, wouldn't it?
No, wait. So Parker's betting that there won't be any 2s?
Correct.
I'm betting there
Oh,
won't
no, I
be
don't
a
want that.
split.
I'm on the same side of that bet. He's betting with you. I'm not taking that. That's with Aaron.
I don't understand. I don't understand what you. If we're all in agreement, there's not going to be in a 2.
Brandon's backing out. Yeah.
No, wait. I thought you were betting against Aaron, saying there was going to be a 2.
No, I agree with Aaron. I am confident that he's right.
See, this is where. So I don't understand how this started. Aaron said something, and you're like, "I'll bet you." And then we got to here where you're betting each other the same thing will happen.
I don't think this is that hard.
It's like, I feel like this is the moment in Beavis and Butthead when they sold their charity candy bars to each other for $1 back and forth that just ate all the candy bars. It's like, that's not how this works.
So you just refuse to take a bet about 2-pointers is the end of our.
No, I just also believe there won't be a 2-pointer released. So why
Okay.
would I bet against my own beliefs? Like, right? It's like, Parker, will the sun come up tomorrow? And you're like, yes, Brandon, it will. I'm like, I bet you it will. And you're like, what? It's like, but I also think it will. It's like, yeah, I bet you $100 it will. And you're like, so I'm betting against the sun coming up? Like, what is happening?
Do you know that the saying, the sun always rises once a day and sets once a day is actually incorrect?
I've never heard that saying, but okay.
Oh, well,
believe you.
the adage, right? Sun comes up in the morning,
Sure.
goes down at night.
Yeah.
Not true. It's all based off of our conception of the world and where we live.
Oh, you mean because the time zones, like, the day is all day, and so it sets and rises constantly in different places?
Well, no, I just mean that if you live north of the Arctic Circle, the sun doesn't fucking set ever.
Oh,
Like,
right, yeah.
For 5 months. So but this preconceived notion that the sun always comes up at some point in the day and always goes down at some other point in the day is fundamentally not a fact.
Right.
It's
but
only
for
a fact based
99%
off of
humanity,
your
it's
tiny,
true, yeah.
little insignificant perspective on life in the universe.
Hey, to be fair, that insignificant is like a huge population.
Well, I'm just saying what
Yeah.
some people take as facts is actually perceptions.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well,
okay.
I perceive
So-
that there's not going to be a 2-pointer. Are you willing to let me win anything based on that perception, or
No.
or are you just refusing?
No, I'm gonna let you bet with Aaron, so Aaron's fronting it, and so I don't know who wins this bet.
Well, I don't think there is a bet because we're all speculating.
That's
the
what
same
I'm
thing.
saying. Is you guys are saying the same thing and trying to make a bet out of it.
Okay, we're done. Parker, do you have any speculative news of your own?
He already did. He said Ultron will be 6.
Well,
but you got
anything
a
else?
brand new thing?
Anything else?
Okay.
You gonna throw down?
Okay. I think that they're going to start a new X-Men subfaction, an X-Men affiliation. I think it'll be
Astonishing
sorry,
X-Men.
an X-Men leadership. It's X-Men Blue, right? X-Men Yellow. I think there'll be X-Men Red or something like that. I think it'll be another X-Men leadership.
Okay, so hold on. We already know for a fact that Professor X is coming out with an X-Men leadership.
Oh, we do?
God almighty, Parker. You're fired. Brandon?
Why? How do we
I
know that?
actually don't know that that's actually confirmed. I
Did they
think
say
that's
that?
just assumed.
Did they say that in the stream?
I am pretty sure that was verbally acquiesced or admitted to by one of the devs on the Adepticon stream.
Okay, then.
I was busy muttering, "Why the fuck are they releasing a guy in a wheelchair into a combat game?" But so I didn't hear much of what they said at that point.
Yeah. So I'm 95% sure they said he will be a leader.
Okay.
Cool.
So
Yeah,
unless you mean other than Professor X, then that'd be speculative.
he
news,
specifically said sub-faction, so I assumed he meant they were going to break up X-Men into regular X-Men, like Uncanny and Astonishing would be separate rosters. I don't think they'll do that. I would like them to.
No, I don't think they'll do that.
Same thing with X-Men. They could do, or not X-Men, Avengers. They could split up Avengers as well.
Yeah.
I think it just makes the game more interesting when you give people more choices. Anyway.
So I do think they will do that whenever we get, for lack of a better word, Marvel 2.0. And I do not know if that's going to be in 6 months, 18 months, or 5 years from now. But I think an affiliation shakeup would happen at that point in time.
Do like a remix kind of thing.
Mhm.
I don't think they plan on doing a set like 2.0 ever. And obviously, you never say never, but I think we could see a remix kind of thing happen where they do like a hard errata and clean up some stuff. But I don't think we'll ever see like Marvel Crisis Protocol 2nd edition. I don't think that will ever happen. I think they would avoid that by any means necessary, just due to the individuals working at the company's history.
Okay, fair enough.
But in like semantics difference, there isn't really one, right? It's just like they decided to do like a reset moment.
Right, it depends on like what they've done are small updates, right? And those are
Yeah.
clearly updates, not resets. But if they were to take a look at
Right.
every character and maybe some core rules changes and release them all at the same time, without a actual core box update, the community would probably call it like 1.5. Like, who cares what it's called? It would in effect
Yeah.
be what you described, a reset of sorts.
Yeah. I don't think anybody be against that. Like, obviously, if it's in the best interest of the game, that's always good. So I'm trying to think of a speculation that I think will actually happen and not just wishful thinking. Because the whole point of this is like we're making educated guesses, right? We're not wish listing.
No.
We're not hoping.
Right.
So I think there's going to be a secret reveal that nobody has yet tapped into. So we've got the release cycle has slowed down, and we had a bunch of things teased at Adepticon. And so at the rate we're at, we're barely even going to get those out this year, and then there will basically be like a Christmas release that we didn't know about. And so I think there's going to be something that they've kind of been sitting on for a while.
So
I
go ahead.
I want to say that's going to be like Fantastic Four. I don't think it will, but I don't know. I think there's going to be a new affiliation before the end of the year. How about that? Is that fair?
Ooh, that is spicy speculation. Yes.
You mean
So I'm-
released before the end of the year or announced?
I think released. I think there will be a new playable affiliation by, New Year.
Makes sense for the holiday season.
Yeah.
So
I think we'll hear about it around Thanksgiving, and it will launch December.
Ooh, no way. So think back to last year when we had the June keynote, and that's when they spoiled Shield vs. Hydra. That came out in like September.
Yep.
So like 3 months ahead of time.
Yeah, I think it's going to break their normal cycle.
Okay.
But also, you got to remember they released a whole new game this year, so it's going to fill their calendar a lot more.
Yeah.
Because they're releasing stuff for 2 brand new games, plus they're managing 3 other games. Obviously, they've got a lot of stuff on their plate, and I feel like that's going to cause this stuff to get pushed back a bit.
Okay.
Because actually, what we saw in the keynote was the majority Star Wars stuff. Like, vast majority of them were Star Wars things.
Right.
Because there was 4 games, right?
Yep. I just thought that most of the, and I still think most of the X-Men releases at Adepticon are 2024.
It's possible.
I think most of those.
Well, I mean, we only saw
quarter
3D
one.
renders, right? We didn't see any actual models.
So I do like your speculation that after, so the 2 models from Adepticon that were colored were that we still haven't seen are the Rivals Pack and Ultron.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll see Ultron before the Rivals Pack. But between that and the other spoiled models at Adepticon, I think there's absolutely room for a surprise affiliation, if you will, with let's call it 3 boxes or whatnot in the October to November timeframe.
Mm-hmm. Late 3rd, early 4th quarter.
Yep. So I'm not willing to say that I think it'll happen, but I wouldn't be shocked, and I like where you're going with it.
Hmm. Yeah, honestly, I don't have a good meter on what it's going to be. Like, I want Doom to come out really bad, but I don't think it's going to be the F4 and Doom. I feel like it's going to be something else that nobody's really expecting.
Great Lakes Avengers.
Like, honestly, they could announce Thunderbolts, like, because the TV show's starting to fire up production. Like, I could really see Thunderbolts happening. It'd be an easy to do like a 1 or 2 box release and pull in a bunch of characters from other affiliations.
They could go like totally left field and do like an intergalactic federation kind of thing, where it's like Skrulls and Shi'ar and Chitauri, and like they could do a bunch of weird stuff.
Oh hell, they could release like Super Scroll and some stuff.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say Scrolls, so
I
and
don't know.
know Marvel, so
That's the problem.
Yeah,
Is there's not
There's
enough.
not like character scrolls, right? Like there's only a few
There-
specific.
There
ones.
are a few like that have had names before, but they'd have to just hope people understood who they were. But you could definitely do like I said, like an intergalactic coalition, because there've been tons of intergalactic coalitions, and you could do like Kree, Super, the Supreme Intelligence, and Lilandra. Everybody knows who Lilandra is from the Shi'ar, and like Brood. You could do a Brood faction. You could do not Brood faction, but you could do tons of just aliens, just like random grab bag aliens.
Gladiator.
Yeah, Gladiator from the Shi'ar. Like you could do a bunch of. There's a bunch. There's already some in the Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians already has like Ronan.
How about this then?
Nova could come with that, and everybody would lose their shit.
I got some spicy speculation for you.
Hmm.
Alongside Bishop's release, they'll release Nimrod in a standalone box.
I'm gonna fight out there.
I don't.
You don't think so?
Nope.
As much as I want that so bad, that's a wish, not a speculation. I don't think it's like.
I think it might happen.
I'm trying to.
I don't think it'll be. I don't know if it'll be this year, but I feel like they'll slip some future Sentinels in with the future mutant.
I was trying to think of like I was trying to think of like stuff that's going on right now. Like Secret Invasion is all over all of their stuff.
Yeah, but it's the weird part is because you're trying to predict things that aren't coming out right now. It's things that'll come out in like 4 or 5 months, which are going to be probably a little ahead of the things that are happening in 6 to 10 months.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's all I got. I'm ready to move on if you guys are.
Sure.
Yep.
All right. So moving on this week, we got some basic stuff currently playing. I am still playing Thanos Guardians. I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of in a malaise in general in finding a list to play. Nothing's really speaking to me right now, and it's kind of annoying. Like, I just want a list to, like, pop out, and I'm just like, yeah, that's what I want to play, and then just jump on it. Like, I haven't had that happen in a while. Like, I want to play every list, like, one time and then switch, and so it's hard for me to stick with something.
Oh well, I was about to say like I have exactly what you're talking about. I want to play everything, but that's actually I like that.
No, it's not like I'm down on the game or anything. I just like I can't find a list that like I don't know I connect with at the moment. Like Brotherhood used to be that for me, but like where I could just like I'll just throw some Brotherhood stuff on the table and have fun.
Mm-hmm.
And like Convocation was that for a while, where it was like I enjoyed all the the cool decision making. But yeah, there's really nothing right now that like speaks to me. If that makes sense. Like I can play the list, any list, I can have a good time. But it's not like I'm not I don't feel like the connection with my list that I normally do, and that's like kind of what I've been looking for. But like it's mostly just lack of dojoing. I think has been doing it to me.
Yeah, you haven't got to get down deep in the think tank and get excited about something. That's what does it for me too.
Yeah, like my Hydra list was probably the last thing I had that like connection with, where it's like all those fun synergies that I built into my list. And it was like really interesting to play.
Mm-hmm. Hot takes, and then you got to see the hot takes, and they worked. Yeah, that's super fun. And that's where I'm still at with my stuff. I'm actually really excited. My painter is about to get all of my the rest of my Asgard / Cabal list in, and it's nothing like spectacular. So I think it's going to be what a lot of people already know about the game, but I'm excited to put things like Loki and Thor down on the table like as often as I can. Bring it back to the good old days of tossing siblings around, some rivalries. It sounds like fun.
Cool.
Aaron, what have you been playing?
I'm with you. I have been playing something different on purpose all year long. I am currently looking to start my next affiliation, for the next 2 weeks or so. I'm not sure what it's going to be.
But yours is more of a checklist than like a desire.
True. I take a look at what's available that has not been checked, and then it's kind of a desire out of the remaining to kind of see what I want to play. I think it's going to be Midnight Suns, to be honest.
Ugh.
Or not.
Just saying. I guess what's left on your list? Because as soon as you tell me as soon as you say I don't know what affiliation to play, man, that's just a challenge to me. I love that kind of thing. No.
Okay, well, you want me to give a quick
pick
update on where I'm at on my quest at the 6
sure.
month point?
Yeah.
Okay, so for any of our new listeners, this year I've decided I wanted to actually play with all the toys I bought. So my goal in 2023 was to play every affiliation a minimum of 10 times to get a feel for how the affiliation plays, and every model in the game at least 5 times, in a situation to which they are best suited. So not just throwing models in bad situations and being like, oh, this model sucks. So at the 6-month point, I have played 285 games of Marvel this year. I have played 16. I have played 16 different affiliations at least 10 times. There were 134 models to begin with, and I have played 89 of them 5 times or more, just to get a sense for, again, how they play. I would argue 5 games is not enough to really get a sense for a model, but I had to draw the line somewhere, and I felt that was the absolute minimum.
Yeah, you've explored the space.
So the ones I have left to go: Midnight Suns, Defenders, Black Order, Asgard, A-Force, Winter Guard, Wakanda, and Dark Dimension. Those are the 8 I have to go. Parker, I'm planning not on playing Wakanda until the Rivals panel comes out.
Yeah, I was gonna say wait for Wakanda guys for that to come out.
Yep.
I feel like that's cheating though, because you said the whole point of this was you're only playing things, like you were only trying to get the things played that were out at the start of the year, right?
Yes, this is true.
So,
I'm not considering models that were released in 2023.
Right, so you're not tallying the new models, and you're not requiring yourself to play them, which I think is fair, right?
Correct.
Like you shouldn't be forced to play things that came out a month before in like some weird list trying to mash them all together like that. I'm not saying that, but it's like waiting to play a faction until they get new releases feels like cheating.
I don't know if it's cheating. I think it's just not. It's counterproductive. It's counterintuitive to what you're intending the whole project to be, right? Like you said, you're purposely leaving out new stuff so that.
Now, don't get me wrong. The fact that the affiliation has like 5 models in it is not ideal.
I'm not completely leaving out new stuff. Like obviously, I'll play Immortal Hulk and Gwenpool and Squirrel Girl, right, and in the places where they fit, like to make lists work. But I'm not including them in the models I am quote unquote required to play. I don't know. I figured like picking an affiliation was kind of at random. So if an affiliation was going to get a facelift, why not just wait until the facelift happened?
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
So part of the reason for Midnight Suns is I wanted to at least try Immortal Hulk prior to actually narrowing down WTC lists. Like I don't really see ourselves playing Defenders, Black Order, Asgard, Winter Guard, Dark Dimension, right? There's a bunch of non-winners, if you will, on that list. So I wanted to knock out Midnight Suns prior to WTC prep to know kind of how they played. You were saying, Parker?
I was going to say that Midnight Suns would be. This is probably personal opinion, the least interesting one to me because I've seen so many people play it recently. I've played into it so many times. I don't. Maybe somebody could take a really weird Midnight Suns list into me right now, and I'd be like, "Whoa, look at what this thing does!" But right now, I feel like I cannot be surprised by Midnight Suns. I would be much more surprised if somebody played Defenders really well. I think if Brandon played Doctor Strange and Magneto and Defenders with me, like right now, I think he would win automatically because I don't know what to do. I think he would win automatically.
It's because his mind would cave in when the game started.
Yeah, because as soon as he put it down,
loathing.
He'd be like, I played Doctor Strange, Hulk, Wong, and
Iron
Magneto.
Fist.
And I would go, and then you're gonna go, I'm gonna put a portal here and 2 inches away here. And they go, why did you do that? It's because it wins.
I can't remember if I recorded that game or not, but if I did, you have to just go back and watch it. Like the mental torture chamber I put Parker in
it was the
by
worst.
Placing 2 portals within 4 inches of each other. And he's like, why are you doing that? That's the dumbest thing you could ever do. You want to like go as far as you can. I was like, fine, like then just I'm dumb then. Like over the next several turns, they were like exactly correctly placed, and I got to do everything I wanted. And he was just like, I hate this. This is the worst thing that's ever happened.
So I guess what I'm saying is, I think there is not a lot of space right now in Midnight Suns. I feel like I see the corners of the room. I think if you told me to play a faction I never played before, Defenders actually has space. There are lots of really great models in the affiliation, and there are lots of really interesting applications for specifically the portal that I think are fascinating. I also think it's fascinating that you can functionally play it with a 2-point leader. I think that's really interesting. I think that's not nothing, and I think some people will. You laugh all the time about playing unaffiliated. It kind of feel like that faction kind of feels like you can play almost unaffiliated, but you get this portal, and the portal is, I think, amazing.
I think if the characters that really abused criticals weren't all immune to Hex, then Defenders would actually get played.
If the characters that
if you could
abused
actually just
criticals-
like Hex, like Cosmic Ghost Rider and
Malekith.
Malekith and like all those people, like if you just
Mhm.
actually could just point and click Hex them, I think you would actually see those models played.
But it does do things against things like popular models like Red Skull and stuff like that. Spending a power to hex those models is not nothing.
Mhm.
To potentially hex those models. That's the kicker there.
Sorry, potentially, but you're also getting to choose like the best.
I know.
Attack for
it is not a useless. It's not clause leadership. Let's go there.
No. And
so-
boo-hoo, you have to play Doctor Strange. It's one of the best like control/support models in the game. And like I said, or you go, you know what? This leadership is totally not useful. But here's my 2-point leader. His name is Wong.
So the big problem for me is like you could just usually swap one model in your list and just play a different affiliation, because so many of those characters are affiliated with either Midnight Suns or Convocation or Avengers. Like there's so many overlaps, which is why I think they really don't get played. Because you literally any Defenders roster you build has 4 models that are all affiliated with each other in a different faction, and so it's just annoying that it's like they're trying to encourage you not to play Defenders sometimes. But it's really, I think, it's just caused by affiliation bloat, where like there's 2 or 3 affiliations that just have too many models in them, and so it's just like you can just accidentally get affiliated with them.
Yeah, so, every Midnight Suns list is probably affiliated with the Defenders.
Yeah.
So Parker, back to your Midnight Suns comment. So my perception of Midnight Suns is that they were good before Immortal Hulk came out.
Yes.
They weren't top tier, but they were good, and there were some shenanigans they could do that were like, huh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Immortal Hulk came out, and now all you see is Immortal Hulk.
Right.
So my point was, well, hold on a second. What if this model, fixed some of the weaknesses of this affiliation, like perhaps in certain scenarios or against certain teams, and instead of trying to jam Immortal Hulk down someone's throat every damn game, what if I just use it as a tech piece or in certain situations, right? So I think dialing back the Immortal Hulk usage might actually increase your Midnight Suns flexibility and win rate.
I think it's absolutely true. I think there are other models that absolutely benefit from their leadership in a crazy way. We've talked about them on this cast a lot. Like MODOK is a great example. Like it's just dumb that if MODOK gets to hop. And yet, people didn't play Midnight Suns, back then for that. A few people wanted to play them, I think, because they liked the fluff, but not to abuse that leadership. I think there is probably some space there to say, like, I'm going to put Immortal Hulk in here because he's affiliated, but not because he's my linchpin. I'm going to force everybody to eat Immortal Hulk. Right,
or if we're playing on Gamma, then great. Immortal Hulk's going to just sit on your back Gamma point turn 1, and we're going to go to town.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so I'm interested to kind of see where he fits in a kind of a min-maxed Midnight Suns list, as opposed to like an every drop perspective on him.
For that matter, if you found a spot for one tactics card, you put it in the portal, and then then you're like, what? If I feel like it, I might want to put a portal down here and really throw something my opponent wasn't prepared for.
You're not wrong.
All right. So let's move into our next segment. Today we have, we're going to talk about, it's hard to describe. I've described it as game balance through RNG. And so I have basically an example that happened to me over the weekend, and I'm going to try and describe it. So the thought here is it okay to have, I think Immortal Hulk is even a good example here. Is it okay to have a model that is very strong, or a list, whatever happens to be, just a hypothetical situation, something in the game that's very strong, but is somewhat limited due to random effect? Like, Hulk is a almost unstoppable model if he hits wilds on every attack. It tends to feel that way. the amount of damage he can put out is almost unparalleled if you're hitting the wild trigger at every opportunity. But on the flip side, if he doesn't hit the wild ever, he seems like he's not even worth the effort. Like, the throw is so important to his kit, and while it should happen a pretty regular amount of times, it almost never seems to in games. It almost always seems to happen 100% of the time, or not nearly enough. I don't know if you guys have experienced a similar thing, but do you think... Go ahead.
I was going to say other models that we've talked about before, like Thor was the OG of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, man, if Thor gets a few wilds, he just ruins the whole field.
If Thor hits 4 hits counting a wild on every attack in the game, he's amazing.
Yeah.
If he hits 3 hits no wild on every attack in the game, he's completely useless.
Right.
And it's like that one die. If one die just rolls over to a wild, it makes all the difference in the world.
Uh-huh.
It's similar with OG Wolverine. Like, if you just walk up and roll 3 and hit a wild, like, you daze people, and if you don't, you don't do anything. It seems like it's just so weird. And so, the exact example that happened to me was I played against X-Men over the weekend. I lost priority. We pulled both bad missions, and specifically on X-Men, going second against X-Men. Having an even number of extracts on the table is very important. And we pulled my one mission that didn't have an even number of extracts. And so I'm going second. He has a safe steal. Takes 2 of the extracts, or 1 of the extracts. 2. Sorry. We're playing Legacy Rise. So we got 2 of the extracts, I get 1. And I fail 2 of my pay to flips uncontested. And I just lose the game basically on turn 1. And I don't feel like there's really anything I could do to fix the thing. Like, I couldn't have changed the priority roll, I couldn't have changed the mission flips, and I couldn't have changed my die roll on the interactions. And so, because of that, I end up losing, which is fine. Like, you lose games. My opponent played it really well. He didn't make any mistakes, to my knowledge. But it just felt like I never had a chance to play the game. And so, which is probably good, honestly, because I think the list I'm playing is pretty egregious. And so it's good that there's something out there that can stop me. But basically, is it okay that if you're trying to create a situation where an even win rate happens, is it okay to do it through just random chance? Does that make sense? I'm not saying that, MCP is just 100%, Yahtzee machine or anything, but does that make sense to you guys, or am I completely off base?
I think we can get to where you want to be at through a little discussion.
Okay.
I'm not sure I would agree that RNG limiting a model is good. I think RNG pushing a model can be okay. And I think the difference there is, like, if you assume Immortal Hulk is killing the world with wilds, and that's kind of the expectation, then that model's too overtuned. If you're hoping the RNG brings it back to Earth once in a while. If the model is normally performing at a good, consistent level, and occasionally they pop off, I think that's okay. That kind of makes sense?
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's just based on specific model design or whatnot, but RNG should enhance activations and gameplay, not be a limit. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I have similar thoughts. Like, I feel like RNG should kind of create the gradients between the decisions you make, but not completely rule them. Like, I think everyone's been in a game at some point, and it's if you have any kind of RNG in the game, obviously you're going to hit a bad string of luck at some point. But I think everybody's been in a point in a game where it just feels like all the decisions that you have tried to make have been taken away from you due to die rolls, and that's always not fun. Or like card draws, kind of like that. That's always going to happen, because you need some level of variance in the game, and then eventually the variance will stack up against you just due to, sheer number of attempts.
Yeah. I think your other example is pretty good, though. Like, you fail 2 uncontested flip rolls and lose the game.
Yeah.
Like, so... Go ahead.
And so the odds of doing that are pretty low, right? Like, so it's not like I tried on a 4 die and I tried on a 3 die, each needing a single hit. Those are both very consistent attempts. And so I'm not mad that I lost the game. I dislike the pay to flip scenarios for that exact reason.
Sure.
Is because I don't get the opportunity to make decisions in that space. And so, like, I can deal with combat rolls all day long, because once you get to a certain point, you're just like, okay, you're very likely to kill me. I don't really care anymore. Now it's just about number of attacks to number of health bars I have. And so I can make decisions around that. But it's like, okay, well, I only have 5 models. I have 2 points here. One of the sides is going to get checked twice. One of them is going to get checked 3 times. And I just fail the one that has 2 people on it. It's like, what are you supposed to do? Like, there's no decision to be made there. That was just an unfortunate situation.
So, I mean, you did make a decision. The dice did not cooperate. So I don't have as much of a negative opinion about paddle flips than I hear a lot of other people have. I played on Meteors into Suns, and I think we combined for 4 successive failures to flip one of the points. I missed it uncontested. He pushed me off. He missed it uncontested. I missed the overflip. He missed the overflip. It was just, part of the game, in my opinion. But in my mind,
the real problem with pay to flips is if the luck isn't shared that way.
Sure.
Like if only one person's failing, that person just loses, and there's nothing that can save them.
So that person will lose that point. I agree. Mm-hmm. Unless you're saying I fail every roll I ever make this game, in which case you have the worst luck in the world. Got it.
Right, and that's an extreme.
Right.
But just saying is like if one person's failing.
Right, let's say you fail your first 2 and then get the rest, but that puts you behind. I will absolutely agree that roll will advantage your opponent. I don't see that RNG as being any different than spiking or whiffing on your attack dice. It's all baked into the puzzle you're trying to solve in terms of how do I get to X many points while keeping my models alive, or how do I table my opponent? I guess there's 2 win conditions in this game. And failing on a roll that sets you back in the VP race then changes your calculus on what you need to do for the rest of that turn and subsequent turns. And I appreciate that about the game, right? So I have a plan. Oops, I failed this roll. Ooh, looks like I'm no longer going to go up on VPs. Okay, what do I need to do now? Right? It rechanges the board, and I have to change how I perceive the board and what actions I'm going to take in response to that stimulus, which is failing the die roll. For me, that's why I play the game, right? I want my brain to be active and engaged and thinking about all these different things as I go through it. So I agree it can be very frustrating at times when it just all goes against you, but I still appreciate the RNG throughout the game to provide me with the mental stimulus that I like from it.
Yeah.
I have this, and maybe, I don't know if anybody else shares this experience. I very rarely have an intense memory of the negative RNGs that I get. And maybe it's just because it happens fairly often, right? Like your example of the game where you do nothing but flip poorly. I'm sure it's happened to me that my opponent got all the flips and I got none. And that kind of took my agency over when the game would end, right? Really what it does is it shortens the end of the game. And I couldn't come back from the victory point margin. But I have very, very distinct memories when RNG goes in my favor in a wild way that makes me appreciate the RNG element. I've had turns where Angela just one-shots 3 things, and it feels so amazing. I've had moments when my opponent, rolled really hot to one-shot a character, and because he dazed them, then he couldn't teleport to him because it's its after effect, or something like that. Like, I remember all of those moments where something, because of RNG, just showed up directly in my favor, and I will never forget those times. And one of the things that happens, I think, very interesting about models and miniatures games in general is I will often attribute it to, for some reason, Angela and not RNG, right? I think that a lot of people will say, Angela's amazing because whenever I played her, or Venom is terrible because whenever I play him, the RNG doesn't seem to work, when there actually is nothing about the model or the character or their opinions or their lore. It's just RNG, but it does create this kind of cool narrative for you as a player with the models in the game. You've created your own stories with them. I think that's fascinating. I care more about having Angela on my list because I had this really amazing game with her. That is not logical or rational, but it is fun and human and narrative. I like
maybe that is why the missions frustrate me so much more than the character interactions do, because I can understand like the character interactions, but more importantly, I feel like I have the ability to manipulate the character interactions through like my model placement, the order of activation stuff. I feel like I have much more control over how combat goes, because like I can bodyguard, I can recal, I can do all these things to interact with attrition rolls, but I can't interact with the mission rolls. I just have to watch and see what happens. And maybe that's why it feels so much worse in those situations. But yeah, in the game we played, it was just like, if your opponent never fails to roll and goes last, like, you just lose on pay to flips, especially when you don't get priority, right? Like, when they get to go first and they're up on extracts, you just like, I don't know what you can do other than just watch the game end quickly, because you only get to play for 3 turns.
I know this isn't a good salve for it, but there is only, maybe there's more than one. Could somebody think of another? There is a model in the game that specifically says if you don't like pay to flips, you can re-roll them. Like Heimdall does fix it ostensibly. Now I know that he doesn't go work for everything all the time, and it's just one re-roll.
It doesn't work in my list because it would break affiliation, right?
Right.
But
like there's
some lists can take it, and yeah, getting to put him in position to get to re-roll even 2 rolls a turn is potentially good.
Right. So there is, like, if you really didn't like the RNG, around that part of the game, there's at least one thing you could do. And he's not a bad model. It's not like you're going in on some really terrible support model that just helps you with that. He's fine otherwise.
Yeah, I just feel like pay-to-flip missions are the best way to take the game and basically curve the effectiveness of specific models. Like, not even just attrition models, but any models that are strong become less strong when you introduce an element of chaos into it, which is, like, obviously, as long as you're making the correct decisions on pay-to-flips, it just takes the decision-making and just puts a limit on it, because, the RNGs has a chance to just decide who wins sometimes. And not completely, right? Like I said, this is only assuming equal player skill. Like, if you think that you're as good as your opponents, I think pay-to-flips are good. Because you're at least as good as your opponents, is what I mean. Mm-hmm. Because you will get the opportunity to make correct decisions, and then have RNG keep their models from being stronger than your models, is kind of what I'm saying.
So I think at the end of the day, against 2 good players running competent lists, RNG should decide that game.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's a problem that a lot of people run into is they lose a game and they're like, okay, what do I need to change in my list? What do I need to do differently? And I'm not saying you can't learn from your games. You should absolutely self-critique. But sometimes, like, you play a pretty damn good game, and it just didn't work out. Like, okay. Like, I just lost my TTS Cuts game 20-18 in round 7. I made a couple mistakes, but my opponent also played well, and it came down to multiple single die rolls in turn 6 to decide if it went to 7 or if I won. So I'm not going to beat myself up and be like, oh, I should have taken a different list, or I should have made these 18 different decisions in the game. I just congratulated my opponent. I said, good game. Someone has to lose. It was me this time. That's okay.
Yeah. I actually see the opposite be more true. Is a lot of times when people lose, they'll just blame the RNG. Like, oh, the RNG is the only reason I lost. It's like, well, you can say any number of things changing in your game would have resulted in your win, but that's not necessarily true.
Well, I do hear a lot of people complaining about dice, yes.
Yeah. So I think it goes a little bit both ways. I think that's usually like when a game gets out of my hands, I usually try and sit there and think about, what actually was the cause of it. Like, if we take the dice out of it, was there a decision I made that, even though it wouldn't have made the difference, may have put me in a better position to make better decisions later? And so I like to do that. And I rarely actually change my list because of a loss. And so that's interesting to me.
Yeah. Like a great example, I was playing someone on Scrolls, and they moved a model up to take the scroll, got pushed toward me. And I'm like, oh, that's nice. Why don't I just murder you right now? And, takeaway at the end of the game was, if they don't get pushed, they're in a much better spot, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
But
you made the decision knowing that there's a reasonable chance you're
right.
going to
You
get pushed.
Can't just, your strategy can't be hope, right? It can't be, well, I'm going to pick this and hope for the best. That's a horrible strategy. So,
yeah.
Do you need to change your roster to include a model that can get to the scroll and still have a move left, et cetera, et cetera. So there are obviously some changes that need to get made, and you can't just blame it all on, a die roll, regardless of the fact that you got 4 physical defense and you quote unquote should succeed. I agree you should, but I'm a worst case scenario player. So before I make an action, I will be like, okay, what is the worst case scenario? In this case, it's I fail the scroll roll. What happens in that situation? And if I play through that, subsequent turn and actions, and the result is I die and give you the scroll, I probably don't go pick it up. Anyway.
Yeah. Like our game over the weekend, we got to the point where, in my opinion, the big game basically came down to one activation in attrition. Because, if Gamora kills Iron Man, I feel like I'm in a really good spot.
Yep.
But, there's definitely a number of times she should fail, right? We played the game to the point where there's, let's say, a 75% chance she can kill him. Well, yeah, 25% of the time you're going to lose in that situation. And so there's always going to be a spot where I think we both played a really good game in that one. And so, yeah. I think there definitely needs to be the RNG level. It has to exist. It literally has to. But trying to think back to other games I've played where the RNG was oppressive because it felt like their goal was equal outcome regardless of how you get there. So it's totally okay that models were completely broken, way over the top, oppressive, unfun to play against, whatever you want to call it. They were just off the rails crazy. But it's okay because the game mechanics will cause players to just randomly lose games. And so even though you've got really strong models on the board, the win isn't in front of you. You can't just go claim it because it's just you're navigating a minefield of game mechanics.
Yeah.
And those games are really unfun to me in the long term. Because once you see that, you're just being, all the games are being sorted through a filter and they're just being split into wins and losses due to, random RNG effects, and I really think that's unfun.
So I'll talk about Blood Bowl for a second, because I love that game.
I was about to say, you just described my every Blood Bowl experience.
Here's why it's different, though. So at a Blood Bowl tournament, let's say one of the big ones, you can, as a good coach, go 6-0 and win it, or 2-4, right? And maybe you probably go 4-2, right? Mm-hmm. But in order to win, you have to be good. But just because you're good does not necessarily mean you're going to win. And I think that's a key difference, right? So you can absolutely lose some games of Blood Bowl because the RNG is through the roof. So in order to win a tournament of Blood Bowl, you have to be lucky and good on the same day. So you're always going to see good coaches in the winning circle. Mm-hmm. It's going to be someone that if you know who the coaches are, you'll know. Yep, not a surprise, not a surprise. But then you'll see someone who won last year who placed middle of the pack, and that's just the nature of that game, right? You can be the best coach in the world, and you're going to have days where you just do not win a tournament. I can't imagine you're not going to win a game because it's Swiss pairing, but you're going to lose some matches completely based on RNG. You just have to learn how to learn to deal with it. Over your Blood Bowl career, a year, your record will be approximately what it should be. But the variance in a given tournament is going to be pretty extreme. And the community and the people who play that game have come to, if not embrace, at least understand that and accept it, right? There are some times it's not your day. But sometimes if you are that good coach, you're going to get lucky and you're going to go on the 6-0 run and you're going to take home the trophy. So it's not complete RNG to where you win or lose on a coin flip. There is a lot of skill in the game, which is why you have to be good to win, but you also have to be lucky. So
yeah, I think that's a good point. My experience with Blood Bowl, if people aren't familiar, every individual roll is fairly. It's not crazy RNG, but the outcome is vastly different on most rolls. And so even though a roll might be a 3+ or a 2+, the difference in outcome is very big, and your turn basically results in you rolling somewhere between 10 and 50 dice usually. And so with all of those dice and each outcome of the die dramatically changes the next, it can get to a very weird place very quickly. And so that's actually, I think, one of the more enjoyable parts of Blood Bowl is how the game, it's like chess, it just fractured into so many millions of different possibilities every time you make a decision. And I think that's really fun about that game. Let's see. Another example of a game that uses oddly, RNG. So if there's any Yu-Gi-Oh players here, you're probably going to hate me, but we've started running Yu-Gi-Oh up at the shop, and competitive Yu-Gi-Oh is a sight to behold. It is the most unregulated power creep I've ever seen. And so basically what will happen in a competitive Yu-Gi-Oh match is one player will go first. They will play a ridiculous amount of cards, and they will put lethal on board. But because there's a rule in Yu-Gi-Oh you can't attack on the first turn, your opponent gets to go. And even though they're staring like the angel of death in the face, because you basically built like if equivalent of Magic or like Marvel, I don't even know. It's like your opponent is allowed to put Thanos, Dormammu, Malekith, and MODOK on the middle line and say go. Like it's like that, but they're not allowed to attack you yet. It's so fucking crazy. And then your opponent goes, and they basically look at their hand. They do what they can, and they just scoop, basically, in the middle of their turn because they can't stop you. And then the next person goes, and the same thing happens. And it's just like, they're just dueling with shotguns at point-blank range. It's just like, what are you guys doing? But then, so when you look at the tournament results, the same people end up at the top. And so it's just like, clearly there's some skill happening here. Or like, good deck building, or whatever it happens to be. But when you watch a match, it just goes... player who went first won, player who went second lost, and then it reverses because the next person goes first. They play best of 3. And so the person who goes first in the match wins 2 games. The player that goes second in the match wins 1 game. That's like 90% of the results. Like going first is that strong in that game. And so just like seeing that break down in a tournament is just like, sure, each player won like roughly half the games, but doesn't matter because like the way they got there is really weird. I don't know if that made any sense to anybody. But
No. Yeah.
Good. It doesn't?
No, it does.
Okay, good.
If I was to sum up
Shit.
kind of this long story we've been on, I would say that obviously we're discussing RNG and game design in general, and specifically MCP, where I'm going to come down on this on the side of significantly enjoying the level of RNG and MCP and how it interacts with the game elements.
Mm-hmm.
I will contrast that to Shatterpoint. Well, I don't want to talk about it at length, but the RNG in that is higher and detracts from the game elements. I find it to be non-cohesive and jarring to the point where I have not yet bought into that game. So, anyway.
I think it's interesting, specifically with the Shatterpoint correlation, though, because the RNG, I think, is actually the same. It's just in different places, right? They've moved the RNG from combat to, like, the missions. And I don't like, I'm the guy who doesn't like pay-to-flips, right? Like, I don't like the mission being the random part of the game. And so I understand, like, the hypocrisy, because if we're playing a generic secure, the RNG is if I kill you or not, who's going to score the point. But even though, like, there's a lot of RNG in the combat system, like, we all know that Malekith should kill Wong, right? Like, that's a resource commitment I can make to take a point. As where you get to the other side and you're just like, I'm going to roll 3 dice. And if I don't hit it, if I don't get a damaging result, I don't get the point. And then that's going to, like, have noticeable effects on the mission. And so I don't like that. And I think Shatterpoint, all of their RNG is on the mission side. And I really don't like that. And so, but that's just like a playstyle thing for me. I know some people really like it. So, but I really love their combat tree thing. And I wish that I played a game that had that, I guess. I don't know.
So I've thought about it more. I love the concept, but the implementation is really clunky.
Mm-hmm.
Have you gotten some demo games of Shatterpoint in?
Me?
Yeah.
No. I've watched like 5 games though,
Okay.
so I feel like I could probably just pick up dice and start playing. But obviously I would not know some things. Like somebody would have to walk me through a couple mechanics.
No, I mean, I love the expertise in the combat tree system. Gives them lots of levers to fine tune characters.
Yeah.
But one good thing about MCP is I roll dice, you roll dice, and almost instantaneously I know if that was a good roll or not.
Oh, right, but you don't have
But
like
in Shatterpoint,
you look at your dice, you're like, I don't know if that's good or not.
I roll mine, you roll yours. I'm like, okay, let me mod my expertise. Okay, now you mod yours. Okay, now you mod mine. Now I got to take these dice and put them to see what they actually turn into. So it's a good system in my mind, but in practice, it has been clunky. Anyway, enough Shatterpoint.
So let's see, what's the biggest RNG like winner model of MCP? I'm trying to think of somebody who's all in on like die roll stuff. Jeez. I mean, Thor is a good example.
I was going to say, I
Thor
feel
is
like it might be Thor because unlike some of the other models that are also very difficult to remove,
I'm thinking
or
of somebody
have a
who's
huge
more
presence.
binary though, like someone who's more just like a binary result. Like somebody, because the problem is Thor is really all about the wild, but sometimes he doesn't need it. Let's say like the Inexplicable Demise is probably the best example I can think of offhand. Like, that card is going to win or lose games based on a single die roll, right? And that's your goal. When you play that card, your goal is to introduce chaos into the game. And I think there's game design and there's intentionally leaning into those mechanics that was kind of the point of this conversation.
Is Mind Games kind of the same boat?
Mind Games less so, because I don't think it affects the game as much, but yeah, a little bit. Like, it introduces chaos, right?
Right.
When you feel your beat, like we talked about, you were saying earlier, Aaron, that two good players should have their game should be decided by variance. But when it comes down to once we've put our models on the table, like some lists might be advantage or disadvantage into other specific lists. So let's say my list is very weak against Malekith. Like, it cannot deal with the supermodel. And so, in that situation, I should try and introduce as much chaos to the game as possible because I'm in a bad spot starting. And so, that is an advantage for me. And so, you might even think about that when you're building your roster and put in, like, Pay to Flips or Inexplicable Demise or Super Giant. Models that introduce this extra level of chaos that can just turn the game on their head in a moment. Because you need that pivot point to get out of the spot you're in. And so, things like that, and that's kind of the point of the conversation, talking about them. For example, personally, I dislike the ones that are directly affect scenario. I don't like the pay to flips. I don't like that stuff. But I do like models like Thor, who are not always 100%, but have the opportunity to go above. But yeah. So anyway, I don't know if we really got anywhere with that, but that was kind of the point of the conversation. It's very amorphous. It's hard to really put your finger on it.
Well, I think Aaron probably had. I really like Aaron's point about how it's not just that one time I didn't flip a point. It's also the time that somebody rolled against that model that attempted to flip the point 2 turns ahead of time and didn't do all the damage they needed. Right. Mm-hmm. It's also the time that that same. Your opponent didn't have enough power because they decided to interact with an extract, and now they didn't have the ability to throw that model, so they were in a position to flip that. There are actually lots and lots and lots of things that happen on the board that your opponent has to do and then you have to do before you even try to flip that. That's one of the reasons why I don't think anything ever boils down to that one turn I either had the chance to flip that or not, and because I didn't flip it, I lost. Well, then you'd have to go back to every single thing that your opponent did, and then the counter that you did, and then all the things your opponent could have done, and the things they didn't do because they didn't have a resource because of RNG for you to make that assumption. And therefore, everything boils down to a certain amount of randomness, or rather, unpredictability is the better word to describe it, right? You couldn't have known exactly the way it was going to turn out. I don't know how many games I've had a long mover cross the entire board because all of a sudden something happened that I could never have anticipated because either my opponent decided or it was RNG influenced or both. And then I had to just go, well, I'm just going to spin this board around because I cannot do what I was going to plan on doing. It's not going to happen. And then that's when we talk about all opponents' skill being equal, right? Because it's up to skill for you to go, okay, well, RNG is either helping me so hard I'm going to double down this way, or it's not helping me at all, so I need to double down a completely different way. Because if I just sit here and try to ice skate uphill, it's not going to work. And that is when I think the one of the best parts of the skill comes into the game. How many times have you watched somebody else play, or you've been playing a game, Brandon, with a newer player, and one of the questions I hear you commonly ask them is, well, when this happens, or when this happened in the game, why did you X? And just to find out what they thought. And the answer is usually, I don't know. Like I had that plan from the very beginning of the game. On turn 1, I decided to send, Wolverine there. And you're like, well, when this happened, could you imagine how that wasn't going to be optimal anymore? Your original plan wasn't going to
Yeah,
work.
they didn't reevaluate. They just stuck to plan A.
Right. And I think that is part of the random number generator, both with dice and with, the coin flips and with your opponent's decision making. It's part of the fun. I think it's fun. And I think it's something Aaron alluded to also, just the really high complexity. You want the game to be really complex. And that's the reason why I don't like Blood Bowl, is because I feel like my agency gets taken away. Like I have I see something happen, I go, oh man, now I really want to do all these things to try to work myself out of this hole. Oops, I failed I got one twice. So your turn, and I go, and then I literally never want to play Blood Bowl again, because I'm like, I'll never get the chance to actually work myself out of this. My chance was taken away from me.
Which is funny because of how many games you've played of Blood Bowl on the computer.
Oh, it's so many. But you know what?
Yeah.
You know what happens? It's almost all single player. And you know what happens whenever that happens to me? I turn the whole Xbox off. I just go nope. I just go no, and I literally walk away.
So you invented cancel culture.
Yeah.
No.
I don't think that's what cancel culture
That's what that means at all.
That's my takeaway from that story.
But it is true that kind of game just turns me off so hard. That moment in the game, that kind of RNG turns me off so hard, and I don't feel that if I felt that RNG in this game, I would have stopped buying models after the core set. I would never bought more. So it must not be here, I guess, is the point I'm trying to make. I have a curious question. One of the things that I know Brandon and I often talk about is at the most competitive levels of the game, one of the things that, when we're trying to evaluate the meta, we often go, well, this model is not going to be seen as very good. If you took all the models in the game and you lined them all up with strongest to weakest, the weaker models generally are going to be the ones that are more variance dependent. It's one of the reasons why you don't see Asgard show up very much, because people feel like you have to take Thor, which is probably true, and Thor is more variance dependent than Steve, Captain America, for example. So people don't see them as competitively viable. Is that true, or is that just a psychological thing? I don't know if this is a totally, if this is another hour-long topic or a smaller topic within it.
So I do think that good players in general, not all but most, devalue things that are inconsistent, because you're not. If you, it's not. This is probably gonna sound arrogant, but if you think you're a really good player, you probably aren't reaching for models that have high highs and low lows. You're reaching for models that are like right down the middle, like consistent models.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, because I think you'd be more worried that you'd get the low lows and it would cost you a game than you would get the high highs and they'd win you a game.
Because you only have 6 rounds maybe to do it, and you don't want one of them to come at the moment you need it.
Right. It's all about winning 6 games in a row, not winning, 6 of 10 games, right? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, like, for example, Aaron, in Blood Bowl, what's the most random team in the game? Probably Goblins. Like, the most, can be great, can be terrible.
God, no, they're always bad.
Yeah. But that's kind of my point. Like, if you've got, these things have big upsides, but there's also a ton of negatives. It's and there's, sometimes, my Looney just killed himself with a chainsaw. Oops. Yep. Or, my Fanatic just refused to go in the correct direction. And it's so those things are very strong because they have high variance. And, if you just play them and you just get a bunch of the variance at the bad time, that's not good. And so I would say most competitive Blood Bowl players would probably avoid a team that has high random factor. It seems to me that, for example, people tend to play the teams that have, in fact, skills that help them do the things they're trying to do, and not the opposite.
I don't know. I feel like sometimes it's fun. And maybe we don't see this very much with these kind of games, but I feel like it happens sometimes with TCGs. Maybe because you get to play 2 out of 3, and so maybe the very worst variance. I think it's really fun when somebody plays Asgard and says, "I played 5 tournament games in a row with Asgard, and I only rolled wilds. Get wrecked, everyone here." I think that's fun. I think some people would get really sour grapes about that. I love it when the high variance armies or high variance models get their variance. Maybe I wouldn't like it if they got it against me, but I think it's fun when it's not just the same Shield, Hydra, Steve Avengers like formula, where it's how can I get my super consistent effects to happen very consistently all the time to
Well, this is
to
funny
win.
because like the list that you claim to like the most just literally do that.
I know. I'm not saying. I'm not saying.
I really like to live vicariously through the people that like random chance.
Yes. I'm not saying. I never once said I personally really enjoy playing those high variance list tournament. I get a certain satisfaction when somebody wins a tournament with that kind of thing, because they took a risk. I guess it's fun to watch people take risks, and it's fun to watch a winner. Right? There's a reason why when you're a casino and somebody wins the grand prize, a crowd shows up. It's fun to watch the variance pay off for someone. I'm sure
Okay.
there's a psychological term for that, but
I'm definitely not one of those people. So, Aaron, do you live vicariously through people who win jackpots at casinos?
No,
Yeah, me neither.
I can afford my own hookers.
All right. Do we have any closing thoughts on this? Any way to wrap this up? I pretty much have no idea how to wrap this up.
I would say I like the variance at MCP, and I haven't yet like been even close to throwing in the towel in this game in terms of variance and what it does to the game experience.
I concur.
Yeah, same. All right. Moving on. Our final topic for today. Parker, do you have a comic corner?
I do. So this comic corner actually comes on the tail of the Secret Invasion, which is currently still a running show on in the MCU. And I actually did a comic corner, I think 2 or 3 podcasts ago, about the Secret Invasion event that happened in the mid 2000s, and I mentioned a comic in there that I wanted to kind of showcase here because it's a very interesting title called The Illuminati. The Illuminati's been made famous in the MCU in the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness movie because we get to meet some of them from an alternate universe. But in the primary Marvel universe, the Illuminati consists of Black Bolt, Doctor Strange, Namor the Submariner, Professor Xavier, Iron Man, and Mr. Fantastic. And it's one of the most interesting titles that anyone has ever tried to do in the Marvel universe, because almost every comic book that's ever been made has the same kind of business model where a writer and an artist will be, asked to make something together. They'll partner up with some editors and some inkers, some colorists, and they will be told, this is how long you're going to write this, and this is how long you're going to draw this, and then after this arc is over, we're going to get somebody else to come in if we want to continue for new arcs, or the whole issue will end if it doesn't sell well, and that's it. You do that for so many months, and it's over, and people receive them in so many months. But Illuminati is not like this at all. If you want to know the actual event title, it's New Avengers: Illuminati. So if you wanted to find it, you can find it in any graphic novel form, or you can find it in Marvel Unlimited as New Avengers: Illuminati. And what they did with this title, which is very different, is the writer, who is Brian Bendis, who's done just a ton of stuff across it. He was one of the people who penned the Secret Invasion, so he really had his hands in a lot of the Ultimates universe and a lot of the huge story arcs that were happening in Marvel in the 2000s. He was a big creator at the time. He was actually kind of created a comic in Illuminati that precedes or provides information in between major Marvel events. So rather than coming out every month, it came out functionally every 6 to 12 months. It was really interesting. There's an issue in March of 2006, the next one's in December of 2006, then February of 2007, which is just 2 months after that, but then May of 2007, then all the way to July of 2007, then November 2007. Like, it's a really interesting staccato. And the reason why I encourage anybody who's ever listened or excited about reading about the MCU to read them anyway is because they give you a really interesting look at what it is that Marvel superheroes in general do before and after these major events, like Secret Invasion is one of the topics that's talked about in several of the issues, because the Illuminati are one of the antagonists of the situation. If the Illuminati had not acted the way that they did, the Secret Invasion definitely wouldn't have happened. And so these groups of heroes that represent the major superhero factions in the Marvel Universe meet together secretly and say, hey, this thing has just happened. We need to be proactive about this rather than reactive about this. We're not just going to sit here and constantly face the next Doctor Doom or the next Super Skrull or the next Galactus. We need to have things to do against these preemptively. Why are we always just barely fending off world-ending disasters? What do we do about this? So one issue, of course, is about the Skrulls. They decide to retaliate against the Skrull homeworld after they invade Earth at one point. In one of them, Mr. Fantastic gets the idea. The Infinity Stones are a really big X factor in the universe. Thanos wanted them once, but who's to stop anybody else from gathering them? Maybe we should get them. And they're like, what? And he goes, maybe I already got some. And they go, what? And that's like on page 2. And if you're like, that sounds fascinating. Like what happens when these ostensibly, upstanding moral people with this heavy, burden of responsibility and self-awareness, start to ask these really interesting, hard questions. And each one of the issues kind of confronts one of these very, very important things that does come up later in the Marvel Universe, all the way up to the big reset at the end of the 2000s. So it also has some really, most of it is not action-packed. A lot of it is just conversations between these men and these kind of like these pillars of the Marvel community in ways that you don't normally get to see. You get to see Wolverine talk to Professor X all the time, but you don't get to see Namor, the submariner, talk to Doctor Strange. That's just not something that happens a lot. They also have some interesting banter kind of conversations before their little meetings start, where they're just talking about like women and marriage and other kinds of banal topics that, again, wouldn't you want to be a fly in the room when Reed Richards talks about marriage to Doctor Strange with Namor around? It's just like a really strange, awesome conversation to witness. And that is exactly what you feel like when you're reading these issues. Sometimes there are, cosmic universe-ending decisions made and created in them. And sometimes they're fending off disasters that nobody else in the Marvel Universe even knew happened. In one issue, they confront a huge villain in the Marvel Universe from ages past, and they're the only ones who know that they even came back because they deal with it preemptively. There's tons of really cool adventures with these issues. So if you're ever like, I would like just to read something in the Marvel Universe that precludes or puts a big exclamation point on the end of some of these major Marvel events, and also see these characters do some interesting character interactions that you never see in their main titles, check out New Avengers Illuminati. I wish I could tell all the things that happened, because each issue feels like something you should share with somebody else. I can't give a more glowing review than that.
All right, cool. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us today. Hopefully you guys had a good time and we didn't just aimlessly ramble too much. This has been Brandon.
And Parker.
And Aaron.
And you've just listened to Submariner or Submariner.
So what are we going to call this thing?
I got it. Okay. Incredible, new, fantastic, astonishing, mighty, original, uncanny, sensational podcast.
I'm just going to put down infamous.
We're back. We did it.
Yeah, buddy.
Hopefully nobody notices Jeremy's dead.
I don't think they'll notice. I think they will. I think they'll be curious. But
As to why he's dead?
As to why he's missing. But I don't think they'll notice that he's dead.
Right, that's the term we're supposed to use until they find the body.
Yeah.
Missing.
And we are all persons of interests, nothing else.
I'm always a person of interest.
That was a good TV show.
Was it? Can't say I
Solid C minus.
Can't say I ever partook.
Ooh.
I think that's why I rated it last time, right?
Oh,
C minus.
Doesn't mean it feels any better when you say it again.
I mean, Survivor gets an F plus, so
Okay, I will heartily agree that it is better than Survivor. How about that?
see, we agree on a lot of things, Aaron.
Okay, some things.
I guess this is as good a time of any. So, Aaron, guess what I started watching?
Real Housewives of Atlanta.
Nope.
Okay. Don't tell me it was iZombie.
Okay.
I got no more guesses.
It was iZombie.
Oh,
I'm breaking my promise.
How many episodes in? That's the key question.
I've seen 2 or 3 episodes of season 2.
Did you skip season 1?
Yep. I figured that was the best approach. I'm very lost. I don't know who any of these people are. No, of course I watched season 1.
Oh, okay. Okay, well then you definitely have enough episodes that formed an opinion.
Okay.
I'm very interested. I am actually on the edge
As
of my
a
seat.
monster of the week crime drama, which is pretty much all crime dramas, it's above average. I had high hopes for it. It is gripping, like, for some reason, despite it not having any particular, like, amazing points. It's one of those shows you just want to keep watching.
Mm-hmm.
And I just credit that to the charisma of the cast, mostly. For example, I had the similar feeling with She-Hulk. Like, even though it wasn't, like, the best show, I really liked watching it because it was, like, light and fun and not, like, slow and drab. Like, I don't know, it's just upbeat enough that it's enjoyable to watch. I've run into this rut of I'm starting to like the show less, primarily due to the writing, which is they're starting to do the we'll just keep secrets from each other crap. And I'm just like, okay, I get, like, there was a strong reason originally, but then, like, every episode that passes, just, like, keeping the secret makes less and less sense. And so it hasn't gotten off the rails yet, but I'm just like, hopefully that ends soon.
It's one of my most disliked tropes in movies and TV.
It's so just, like, it's just the cheapest way to create a plot.
Yep.
Right? And it's just really lame.
Well, I cannot remember any of that. All I remember is the food she cooks every week. I still find that hilarious.
I'm glad you like it. It's not riveting to me at all. I thought it was interesting, like, the way they do the food is, like, they have to have spicy foods. Like, the stuff they come up with to eat is, like, it's fine. But, like, what they use to eat the brains is just like, whatever.
Cool.
I do like the police detective guy. He plays a character on Jack Reacher. He's good. He's which is also conveniently a police detective. But yeah, I didn't realize he had done other stuff prior to that. So
I saw the Avatar: Way of Water. Have you seen it yet?
I have not.
You talking to me?
Yeah, I was talking to you, Brandon.
Oh, well, you use the term "yet" like I intend to see it.
Oh, I thought the both of you guys. I know that. Was it Jeremy that doesn't like the first one? I can't remember who doesn't like the first one of the podcast. It was you. Okay, you didn't like the first one.
I did not like the first one.
Okay,
it was fine. It was just like I don't go see movies because they look good. It's like Transformers. Like, I'm sure the combat scenes of Transformers are cool looking, but, like, I have zero interest in paying money to see those movies.
I was completely, and I think I would like to watch it again today, but I feel like I was old enough to not be bamboozled. I felt like the first Transformers movie completely enchanted me. Like, I really, really liked the tone and the effects and the explosions, the nonsensicalness, the silliness of the parents, like all that, the nonsensical amount. I say it so many times because so much of it is silly. It is not a good movie, but I was enchanted by that first one. I really liked it.
I feel like there was some pixie dust on it because
right.
I have heard that it is the best one. And I'm not going to argue against it being the best one.
Sure.
But unless it is multiplicatively times a million better than the second one, I cannot imagine that it's actually good.
And that's the thing. I think it was, what's the best way to put it? It's kind of like a cinnamon roll. I don't know if you ever tried to eat like 3 cinnamon rolls, but it feels horrible. But the first cinnamon roll feels wonderful. Does that make sense?
I have eaten 3 cinnamon rolls, and let me tell you, you're fucking wrong.
I guess it depends upon the make and model of the cinnamon roll. I'm talking about like Cinnabon cinnamon rolls, right?
Yeah, full plate size cinnamon roll.
Yeah.
Extra frosting.
Right. Those like grotesque ones. Like one is awesome, but 2 just feels like, oh, why? Why did I do this? And that's exactly what I think what happened with Transformers. It was like a singular, different, interesting, novel. There were so many things about it that felt fresh and fun. And then when they just did exactly that same note the second time, we're like, wow, that was a terrible note to do twice. Don't do that note twice.
No, that's definitely not the case because I didn't see the first one.
Okay.
It was just the worst movie I think I'd ever seen.
Well, maybe I'm going to go out on a limb. I think probably and I should probably see the first one again to make sure. But maybe the first one kind of captured something novel and interesting in the ways the others couldn't because they were so much the same note over again and trying to do something, like trying hard. I'm not sure. I'd have to watch them again to see. But the point is, Avatar, I watched The Way of Water, the sequel, and it was a strong movie. The first one was a strong movie. The second one was a strong movie. They were not like singular cinematic achievements, but they were good. There's one thing about the movies that I think is, I can't tell if it's good or bad. I think it's only good, which is he is unabashed when in the press about it that he wanted to make these movies so that every single one shines a direct spotlight on a problem with the way humanity has treated the planet. It's really clear, and he said, I am not trying to hide it. It's right there in front of you, and each movie really showcases a different thing. The last one was about, primarily deforestation and the treatment of native peoples, and this one is clearly about the treatment of the ocean, and specifically ocean-dwelling intelligent creatures, and the way people treat them, and have treated them in the past. And so I think that's just probably a good thing that he's making movies about that. And I think the reason why is most people are not like me and are steeped in so much knowledge and background of it. I think a lot of people know nothing about any of it. Like no history, no knowledge of the way industrialization has changed the face of the planet. They don't even know what the word industrialization means. So I think any attempt to make that more obvious to people is probably a good thing. I can see how some people would seem like kind of like a shame hammer over and over again, and it would kind of feel preachy and detract from the movie if you were very educated about topics. But I think it's probably just a good thing, probably for most people, because it still is the highest. The first one was the highest grossing movie of all time. The second one is close to the second highest grossing movie of all time. Like they're reaching huge audiences. He didn't make this just for intellectuals.
Yeah.
But that was my only thing about the movie that kind of took me out of the movie. Is every once in a while I was like, ugh, man, he is really hitting this hard. Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
He's just hitting it with a hammer.
I don't generally like to absorb media that's super preachy because I kind of watch media to get out of political crap.
Mm-hmm. I actually think it's less political as it is historical. Like it's really trying to make it really obvious.
Sure.
But
like I still watch stuff that has agendas and stuff behind it. Like I like Don't Look Up because the satire of like you guys are like not like the whole ridiculousness of the whole situation was the statement.
Yeah.
And like obviously there's a lot of stuff going on, but it was still entertaining, and like the fact that they were calling out how blatant things were at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that is it. Satire is a much more innocuous, easy to watch. Different. Yeah. Like there's a scene in the movie that it's designed to be so insanely tragic, right? And you're just like, there's no satire there at all. It's taking itself 100% serious, and I look at it and I go, yes, this is what we have done to these creatures. Absolutely, we've done it 1,000 times, maybe hundreds of thousands of times, with zero remorse. And the reason why it continues to happen is nobody sees it. It's out in the middle of the ocean, and they purposely are excited about everyone's ignorance about the way we treat the ocean, and yet, from my it took me out of the movie. It took me out of the scene because I was like, "Wow, this is heavy-handed. This is really trying to get people to understand what the humanity and the inhumanity of all of this." But and maybe it didn't take, like I said, like maybe to the layperson it is just illuminating and interesting, and they leave the theater going, "Wow, I can't believe that's the kind of thing people would be willing to do." And I go, "Well, you don't know people very well." But I think you would be turned off by it, Brandon. I think you wouldn't be able to enjoy.
Well, I didn't like the first one, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
I've decided that I want to do a topic, if you guys are good with it, in the future. I'd like to do a post-ramble movie rankings.
Okay.
So like we'll have homework, and we'll decide whatever the genre is. Like let's say sci-fi, and we'll all come the following week with our top 5 sci-fi movies, and we'll do them in the post-ramble.
Now,
So like, and then we can discuss openly between us, but like our lists are our lists when we come in, and so then we can just like
I like that. I also like, being like watching the same movie. Anyway,
It would be fun. Like we get to the point. It's like, oh, somebody hasn't seen one of our top 5s. Like, so maybe that's encouragement either to go see it, or then we can like have a film review of it. And be like, nope, you're an idiot. Why did you watch this?
Sure. Why do I feel like you're talking to me right now?
I'm not. I'm talking. Well, the problem's going to be Parker. We all know it.
Yeah, I'm not. It's going to be almost possible to watch a film, but I'll try. You know what? You know what's happened? I've just developed a really terrible habit of clicking on Stream Me shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I just hit the play on any of my devices, yeah. Like what I actually probably watch media, like film media. I could easily watch it about an hour a day, but it's never television or movies. It's just like YouTube stream shit.
Mm-hmm.
I watch, and it's a lot of it's like people playing games that I like. But
yeah,
if I just didn't watch people play games that I like, I could easily down a movie, every 2 days, easily.
Mm-hmm.
I just and it's weird because I don't do that for comic books. With comic books, I will read, hours and hours. I will definitely turn on a comic book before I turn on something else. But for some reason, with movies, as much as I love them, I don't reach for them.
Do you guys ever have those movies like you when you saw the trailer, you're like, man, I'm probably going to see that. That looks good. And then like you just don't for whatever reason. Like you get busy, you forget. Then like nobody else really talks about the movie, so it just kind of gets forgotten. And then you see it on a streaming service. You're like, oh, I finally get to watch that. And then you like put it on your favorites list, and then like you still don't watch it for like a really long time. And eventually you're like, man, I should just delete this. And then for whatever reason, one day you're like about to delete it. You're like, fuck it, I'm going to watch you. Just turn it on.
No, never.
Not the last part, but you do everything up to that.
I do that. I do that for animes a lot.
I do that for a lot for movies, where I'm just like, man, the trailer for this looked good, and then like I'll watch like the Netflix 5-second reel, and I'm just like, nah, like I lost all interest. Like I don't know what it is. So I tend to watch movies when I play video games. So I've been playing a lot of Diablo 4, and I just put stuff on in the background, and I kind of like watch it in the peripheral while I'm playing. And so I watched Dracula Untold the other day.
Oh, which Dracula is that?
That's the
one he can't tell you about.
Yeah, it's called Untold.
No, it just hasn't been told. Oh, Luke Evans. Yeah, Luke Evans does that one.
Yeah. So when I saw the trailer, I'm like, oh, it's the Dracula origin story as opposed to the Dracula story. I was like, well, that seems interesting. And like, it looks super campy but like probably good. And I had over the last like 10 years, whenever this movie came out, I've always gone, man, I should watch that. And then I don't. And I finally watched it last week. It's like I could have written down a plot for you. I got it exactly right.
Yeah.
It was surprisingly good. Like it wasn't super campy, but I don't know. C-, I guess. Like it was better than it was about what I expected.
You know what? That just reminded me. You were talking about like films that I had did exactly the same thing. Frankenstein. And I actually
Oh.
enjoyed I, Frankenstein because I like.
All right, but you go in expecting I, Frankenstein, you'll be okay. But if you go in expecting, like, the Interview with the Vampire, you'll throw up all over the place.
Not the same tone.
Slightly different.
It's Interview with Frankenstein, right? That's why I, Frankenstein. No, not at all.
You go into the same expectations like Preacher.
You want to talk
something
about
like
a movie that'll put you to sleep? Interview with a Vampire. That shit is boring.
that. It is long and slow.
That's one of those movies that after seeing something like Underworld, you'd be like, I gotta see more movies in the vampire genre. And you click on that, you're like, oh, when is anything going to happen? Why is Kristen Dunst so small?
Clearly, it's like a good movie, though, right?
Yeah.
Like
yes.
so you, as soon as like 5 minutes in the movie, you understand what the tone is.
Mhm.
Just like I'm sure I, Frankenstein, 5 minutes in, you know what the tone is. Like,
Right.
you know if you're in or out.
Uh-huh.
It's like, did you watch Van Helsing and go, please make a sequel? Then you should probably watch I, Frankenstein.
I think the tone is actually. I think it's more like Underworld, actually. Underworld with a different monster, but yeah.
I put Van Helsing and Underworld in the same category. Maybe League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. How about that? It's in the tier below where it like wasn't like with a heart of gold. It was just they made it.
Yeah.
It's
I
like,
like-
we're sorry.
I liked Underworld a lot. It hit me. Underworld has big nostalgia for my life because I watched it.
I like Underworld a lot. But like rewatching it, it's clear. It's like, wow, I was
Sure.
definitely in high school when this came out.
I don't know what happened to Aaron Eckhart. I wonder if he makes movies anymore because I watched
He
so
was
many.
in The Dark Knight.
Yeah, I mean, but that was
He-
2008. I'm talking about like recently.
Are we gonna IMDb people?
I'm
as our
just
topic today?
IMDb'd him. I was curious, and it looks like the latest movie he was on is 2016. But man, he was just in everything I liked for a long time. No, I'm wrong. I'm IMDb'd him, and he's in a bunch of stuff, just stuff I haven't seen. Couple. Yeah, well, there I go. I gotta just see more stuff. Oh, that's right. He was in Sully. I forgot he was in Sully too. These are
Oh yeah. Friend of mine honestly thought Thomas Jane and him were the same person because he didn't read like I don't know, actor credits. And he was just like, oh yeah, like he was also in this movie. In this movie, I'm like, that's not the same person.
no.
And he's like, he didn't fully realize it till because apparently they're both in the same movie. And he's just like, is that the same? Like he plays two people? He's like, he couldn't comprehend it. He's like, wait, it's not the same guy.
He plays in one of my favorite like sci-fi military movies. There's so many like Alien versus military movies, and I love Battle Los Angeles. It's one of my favorite ones.
That is a good movie.
I really like the tone of it. I really like how it works. Because it's not a
It had a bit of a District 9 feel to it.
because it's not like the aliens are insanely overpowered and just run over everything and so everybody loses. They are really strong, but it's not just auto lose. I really like that tone. It was interesting. I mean, it's horrible like ratings and stuff, but because it's an action movie, and action movies are always crap according to critics. But I liked it a lot. I've seen it a couple times. You're right. You need to. I feel like you need to do this. We need to have a. We've all seen enough movies. We can make this happen.
Except for Aaron. Aaron's only seen 5 movies.
And
They're
I
all
would.
from 1996 to 1999. So
Yeah.
But he could like if we could dedicate maybe not like to watch the whole list, but if somebody
Well, I feel like
watched
we're going to pierce
one-
the veil here, but I can tell you guys, basically, every time someone says something that they watched that they liked, Aaron pulls out his little notepad and makes notes of like things he should watch in the future. Aaron, I hope I'm not betraying a confidence here.
no, it's right here.
I can see the notepad in screen.
Still got it.
Yeah. And so I feel like all that will happen is basically just Aaron will be taking notes the whole time that we're listing our top 5s. And then it'll get to Aaron. It'll be like, yep, those.
No, I will have
No.
my own.
Good. Do you think we should do top 5s, or because there will be 4 of us, we should only do like top 3s just to get over with? And I feel like if we do 5s, there'll be a lot more duplicating.
Yeah, I think top 3 makes sense.
Sure. You're going to have to decide what categories
Yeah.
movies get to go in.
Right.
For
Because
instance,
we recently did this at the store, and we ran into this issue of like, if you do top 5 horror movies, is Alien a sci-fi movie or a horror movie?
Yes.
We get into these debates because some people just feel strongly one way or the other. And so
Definitely
the way I
sci-fi.
usually
by the way.
Yeah, the way I usually call it is like, what's the point of the movie? Because sometimes sci-fi can be a setting and not necessarily important to the story, right? Like, my example was the movie Soldier. Soldier is about, like, you know, old soldiers being replaced by new, better soldiers that have, like, better training or whatever it happens to be. And it takes place in the far future, but it's not really relevant that it's in the far future because it actually happens on this backwards planet that's very primitive compared to everybody else. So, like, the sci-fi setting is just, it's somewhat important, but, like, it really falls away. It's really just an action movie.
Yeah, I agree.
Right, so... like, Aliens could go into the action genre or the sci-fi genre pretty easily. And so it's really just about, like, where you want to put it, and then we can, like, argue about them.
Sure. Okay. Well, let me know what the different categories are and give me a few days, and I'll have a list for you.
Yep. As long as we never do a Western category list.
Oh, why?
Never.
Well, you're going to have to do, like, ad hoc, you know, pick your own. What are your top 3 that didn't
Ooh.
fit in any category?
Oh, man. No, Westerns? I love so many Westerns.
And how are we going to get to discuss whether Shane does or doesn't die at the end?
Oh my god. I don't even know what movie that is. I just know that I've heard people argue about it.
Well, now you need to fucking watch it.
No, I don't. I just get too bored watching Westerns. They're just too long.
There are some Westerns that are boring. There are some Westerns that are just amazing.
I did watch Tombstone. I like Tombstone, but man, it drags in parts.
It's like 3
And
hours
I think
long.
Tombstone,
right?
but also I think Tombstone is like one of the more, like, I don't know, what's the term? When you make something for the vast audience as opposed to like the super fans.
Yeah.
What's the term for that?
It's got like a high
Mass
appeal.
marketed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
it
also,
feels like that of the Westerns. Like, it's not like a spaghetti Western.
No, not at all. And it's also got ensemble cast. Like it was supposed to be that. It's definitely a Western though. It's pretty. It's got Western motifs. I always tell people if you don't know if you like Westerns, you should just watch the movie Unforgiven and then call it a day. Just because it's amazing. And it's actually
the best. And if they don't like that, they should just stop.
right. Because Unforgiven is ridiculous. But you're talking about like one of those kind of like Aliens could be a horror movie or an action movie, you know, set on a different planet or something like that. It's hard to say. Unforgiven could just be a really amazing drama that just happens to be set on the frontier of America, you know, in the late 1800s. It's an amazing. It has some Western elements, but it's mostly just amazing. Man, that movie is so good.
I'm trying to think of cooler ways we could do this game. Where, what if everyone names the same movie, it gets deleted off everybody's list, and you have to replace it with another movie.
Mm-hmm.
That way we have to have, like, granularity.
I'm game.
I'm going to pee real quick. I'll be back.
Aaron, have you ever watched a movie called Burn After Reading?
I don't believe so.
It's a Coen Brothers movie. I have this feeling that you would love it. I just have this feeling. I think there's something about that movie that you would find precious. It's got an ensemble cast. It's one of their later movies after they got really famous, so things like Fargo. Brad Pitt, Frances McDormand, George Clooney, John Malkovich. It's just huge ensemble cast. But there's a scene. There's actually several scenes in it with J.K. Simmons, and they are some of the best scenes ever. And I want to see your face while you watch those scenes with J.K. Simmons.
Okay.
He plays a CIA director. He's never given a name. And there's some scenes in his office that are just out of this world. And I think you would think this movie is very fun. I'd be curious to know what you think of it.
Okay.
Which movie?
Burn After Reading. It's a Coen Brothers movie.
Yeah, I think I've seen most of it, but it's been so long I can't remember it. I think I usually confuse it with Thank You for Smoking, because they came out about the same time.
Yeah, they did come out about the same time. Another Aaron Eckhart movie. They have a similar. I would say they have like a similar humor tone, but the topics are very different. Man, I'm really excited about this movie thing. I'm also excited about forcing myself to watch a movie I haven't seen. I'm gonna do that.
I wonder if we could have like fan vote. We could do like a poll on the web and like ask fans to vote on who has the best list,
Ooh.
and we could get points.
Ooh.
As soon as we get outside of like 3 categories, though, I'm going to get destroyed because I don't watch a lot of types of movies. Like horror movies. Honestly, sci-fi. I like sci-fi, but I don't think people like the same kind of sci-fi I like. And then westerns. I don't watch dramas. I don't really watch
Rom-com?
musicals. I could watch rom-coms. They don't bother me, but it's usually not what I reach for. Okay, so we've got all the news.
Attorney recap, speculation corner, affiliation breakdown.
I was just going to go through the basic stuff we usually do every week. We said we do want to do the topic I brought up, right?
Yeah. RNG meets the 3 bears.
Yeah. I feel like Jeremy intentionally didn't come on today because he knew I had so many dad jokes just locked and loaded.
I don't think he understands just how many he's going to accrue for next time.
Yeah.
It's just going to be a plethora.
Yeah. I just don't know what to do with speculation because I think we know basically all the releases for the rest of the year, unless there's something just super surprising coming out.
Okay, let's skip the speculation idea. It really was a whim. I was just thinking. And I agree with you guys. It's empty calories, not sure.
Like, the release cycle's just been so slow lately that I feel like the keynote really just spoiled everything.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
Well, how else am I going to go on cast and say that I guarantee that the August release will be a 5-point model?
But what if there isn't an August release?
Well, then I would be wrong, wouldn't I?
Ooh.
Good thing I'm never wrong.
How many of Parker's episodes do you plan to bet on this?
Oh, I bet 100.
100 of Parker's episodes.
I'll let it
You
happen.
realize that would put Parker to 2,000, which would trigger one of his bets,
I
right?
take back my confidence.
Parker desperately needs that Ghost Rider to come out so we can see that he's in Guardians.
Please.
And he could finally get some of these episodes off the books.
Saying double
And
or nothing.
These
The
these episodes, I mean 1.
The August release will also have grunts.
Ooh.
5.
That's actually a strong bet. So you think Ultron's coming out next month?
I didn't say Ultron. I said 5-threat character with grunts.
All right, we're doing this now. It's on the books. We're doing speculation.
Sorry,
So you
Parker.
think next month you think basically Ultron is what you're saying.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Ultron comes out next month and he's a 5-point character with grunts.
I think Ultron's 5 points with grunts, and I think they'll do Ultron before they do the Wakanda Rivals panel.
All right, we're doing it. It's too late. There's no takesies backsies.
I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be 5 points. I have this weird feeling he might be a 6-pointer.
Save it for the cast.
Okay.
All right. Are you guys good? You ready? This is going to be fun.
I said Submariner, right?
Did you?
Did I? Did I say it both ways?
No, you didn't.
Okay.
Is it supposed to be Submariner? I thought it was one of those, like, Grenader kind of things. Where it's like, one's correct and one is technically not wrong.
This Google says it's Submariner.
I would have said the other one is more prevalent.
So, Submariner.
However, when it says here when it comes to the Navy,
Yeah.
then they often use Submariner. But they said,
I mean, the Navy wouldn't know about going underwater, so let's
Right.
use somebody. It's like Grenadier Grenader, I think, is the same thing. It's like, it's technically not either way because it's been like so widely adopted.
Yeah, it says here. I see. Okay, so it's apparently no. That's never mind. That's just a random guy on Reddit. I'm trying to like come up with like what people argue it. Like some people say. So the argument for submariner is that it's a mariner who is underwater as a submariner. That's like the Navy thing, right? But somebody else could argue, he goes on water and land, like that's his thing. So we see like a marine, and should be like submariner. Like, there's some products out there with the same spelling. There's some products out there with the same spelling, and they say it's submariner for the product. But
I think, Parker, the important thing to realize here is that no matter which it actually is, you will be considered wrong by us.
Yeah. I know I'm not winning the fight, but I think your original thing was right. There's probably a correct pronunciation, and then nobody cares if it's incorrect.
Yeah. The more you talked about that, the more I was just sitting here thinking about the MCU and how they're going to handle the Infinity Stones moving forward. Because I think canon, they're gone, right?
In the MCU, yes.
Okay. I feel like with now Adam Warlock popping up and some other stuff, that's shouldn't they still be around?
Hold on.
Or do you think? What?
Now I'm thinking about this. Do we ever see him?
Well, Thanos.
Oh, that's right.
Destroys them.
They sent him back to their original parts of the timeline.
Right, and then Cap dropped them off. But he dropped them off in the old timeline. So if somebody were to manipulate time again, they could go back and get them before Thanos broke them.
Yes. And then
or they could come from another universe, right? Like, let's say Adam Warlock shows up with the Infinity Gauntlet and just says, "Hey guys, I got these from 617," and you're like, Anyway.
Yeah, MCU, they are destroyed in that they were already destroyed off screen.
Yeah,
and they didn't retcon that away. In the Marvel universe, there's some weird stuff going on. Some weird stuff happened with them in the Marvel universe. Still is. I don't know if they're actually destroyed in the Marvel universe. The comic book, I think they are still. Yeah, they're still around. They're absolutely still around. In the comic universe,
yes, I'll be bringing Perrin too.
Cool.
In the comic universe, Adam Warlock actually asked, basically, he realized the problem with the stones is that they've always just been utilized by somebody else, and it's just been up to somebody else's whims. So basically, he used the Soul Stone to give them all will, basically. The willingness,
so that way they have a conscious,
right? The ability to say no. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they have like a failsafe on them where they can just disagree with the wielder and not give them omnipotent power.
Aaron, I almost did something today involving you, and I was curious for your take. I almost asked you if I could come up to the store and record your game with Jake. I thought that would be a cool, fun thing to have the KCBBL Championship videoed, so like the rest of the people could watch it.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know how you'd feel about that.
I would have been totally cool with that. Why would I not have been cool with that?
I don't know. But then I got busy doing stuff, and then I was like, nah.
Okay.
So maybe next year.
Maybe next year. Yep. Thinking of taking a season off in KCBBL. We'll see how that goes.
How'd you do last year?
I won.
So you won 2 years in a row?
Nope.
Oh, did Jake beat you?
Yeah.
No!
I made one. I'm still kicking myself. I made one mistake all game. It just let him score early in the first half, and it was over at that point.
Yeah.
One positioning mistake by one square. That was about it.
What were you playing?
Blood Bowl?
No, what?
I was playing Tomb Kings into his Necromantic Horror.
I thought you were playing Vampires. I thought we talked about this.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron said Vampires are the best team and that we should all play Vampires.
Basically.
That's what I heard.
Mm-hmm. In the spirit of Blood Bowl, I tried to convince one of our local 40K players that they should create a tier system, just like Blood Bowl, for 40K tournaments. And so, the most broken affiliations in 40K should have to play against each other. And then the middle tiers get to play, and then the bottom tiers get to play. And basically just have 3 brackets within the tournament. And I think I said that would help a lot. And he sat there and he's like, you know what? That actually probably would help a lot. And it'd probably actually be fairly easy to get people to agree on what the brackets should be.
Oh, yeah. After I I don't know how I've got to this like part of the internet, but I got to some parts of the internet looking at 10th edition, and everyone agrees what's broken and what's not. It's really odd, actually. So either they're all talking to each other, or the game is just that like granular now.
I think there are some obvious ones. Like, there's clear who the top and like the bottom couple are, and then the middle, the true middle of the pack's pretty obvious. But then there's some like really close calls in there somewhere. But a lot of it, I think, is that most of people's interpretation of 10th is still through like, perception bias. It's like when you read a stat sheet, you just have an impression. Like, especially a veteran wargamer was like, I read this stat line and the point cost, and I said, this is above the curve. And like in their head, it's that way. And I'm not saying they're wrong, because I think a lot of their assumptions are correct, but a lot of it are still assumptions. Like, they're still unfamiliar with the mechanics and the scoring elements, and like, so I'm sure there's going to be a lot of discovery down the road of finding out what's better than we thought, what's worse than we thought, what interacts with stronger synergies. Like, all that will still come into play because the game's been out like 2 weeks.
So you really think there should be like 3 different tournaments going on, or I thought in Blood Bowl they do more like a
it's
handicap
a point system. Yeah, you get a handicap system. But I think honestly the disparities of the top tier and the bottom tier, like there's no handicap that can save that. Like, we're talking
really?
Like you're off by double value. Yeah, like the really broken army right now is widely considered the Eldar Mortal Wound army, and John played a game against it, and Connor had probably about half his army didn't even attack the entire game. And John was tabled on like turn 3. Connor just had like it was like 2 fire prisms, the Wraith Knight, and then the 3D cannons. And the 3D cannons didn't even really attack. They just set up in a like board control area, so they were just like back in the back behind cover, because they ignore line of sight when they shoot. And so he's just like, if you cross this line, the D cannons will start shooting you. So John can't really cross that line because it just doubles the effectiveness of Connor's army. And so it's like the Wraith Knight and the 2 fire prisms, basically just those 3 models tabled him. And he's playing like Tyranids with big monsters and like little dudes and everything. Like, there's just no way to stay on the board. And so he's just like, my army's dead. This was fun. And they went and got dinner.
And there, right there, is why I do not play that game.
Well, I mean, obviously it's going to get adjusted, but I mean, I don't want to make enemies of all the 40k players. I understand that I am probably like the yelling guy on soapbox to them most of the time, but I think it's legitimately interesting how some people can have, like, for me, it's like you either believe in the company, or not the company, but like the people who are making your game, or you don't. And that's where I got to with Privateer Press. I'm sure the game is still playable and people have fun playing War Machine. I can't anymore because I've just lost that trust in the people that made the game. As soon as it felt like to me like they didn't care anymore, then every single like obvious mistake they made just felt more like personal, because they were just like, you just didn't put the effort in. And so like GW supposedly has been designing this edition for 6 months at least, probably a year they've had it in development. And they release it, and it's just this off the rails. And, like, we're not even talking about, like, the obvious mistakes. Like, so they put 6 months of work into this big launch. They spent millions of dollars producing the edition box, the rule books, the cards, all this stuff. Spent millions and millions of dollars and probably tens of thousands of man hours into releasing this product. And the community as a whole of the Beer and Pretzels game said no. That's like across the board, nobody thinks it's good or even really usable. And so I think it was today, there was a huge errata released that's supposed to take a step towards balancing the game. And I'm like, sure, like I'm sure that is going to make an improvement. But I don't understand how somebody can look at the game and go, this was okay. And then the 6-month attempt they made to make a balanced edition was such a failure. But then in 2 weeks, they're going to release a PDF that's going to fix it. Like, I don't know where they get that, like, logic train going, right? Does that make sense to you? It's like you spent 6 months trying to create a finished product. You missed the mark by 3 feet on a dartboard. But then I'm going to give you 2 weeks to fix it, and now we're going to get on the board. Like, I don't know where like that expectation is. And I'm sure it's going to be better than what it was. I have no questions about that. I don't think the game is really that bad. I think there's the serious problems are really in the army balance. But, like, It's just like, I don't know why you put the effort into that game. It just astounds me that people want to. And I get that it is a really cool setting. Like, I played 40K for 10 years, and I get it, but I would just find it endlessly frustrating. But there you go. Now all the 40K players can hate me.
Oh, I
I'm the bad guy.
I think any 40K player would defend their game to the death because clearly they must, or else they couldn't play 40K. But I think any 40K player would hear your comments just now and go, "Yeah, it was probably pretty lazy," and it's really hard. It's really indefensible, is the word, right? Like,
yeah, I just don't know how you defend that. Like, there's no question that GW is not nice to their customers, but like, this was a bridge too far for me. They've never released an unplayable game, and this was pretty unplayable. Like, there's no level of beer and pretzels. Like, did you know like the loopholes in the rules that like people are exploiting right now?
no, I just know of the tier list and how some like I have heard about indirect fire, how like painful it is right now and things like that. But I don't know anything.
So there's
else.
a loophole where in the game you can perform actions to score objectives, and you can't perform an action if, let me see, I gotta remember the order. John said it. There's a rule saying that a unit cannot shoot if it's performed an action, so you just shoot and then perform the action, because there's no rule saying that you can't perform an action after shooting, just that you can't shoot after performing an action. And so, like, that's just the game. And so I imagine that probably got fixed today, but, like, that's, like, the level of stuff that's happening. Mm-hmm. I'm just like, okay, guys. Anyway.
Who's coming tomorrow?
All of us plus Perrin. Jeremy will be dead, so don't worry about that.
That's true.
I hit level 100 in Diablo.
Ooh,
hey! So did the magical soft barrier at 92 feel that bad, or was it?
It's a myth. I don't know who the fuck
Okay.
talked about that, but it doesn't exist.
Okay. Good to know.
Now, I have no idea what I'm going to do tomorrow when I wake up, because I might already played a little bit. So here, I'll go on a little bit of a rant. Maybe I haven't done a lot of research into Diablo, let's put it that way. So I don't know what I'm talking about. But there are 100 levels of Nightmare Dungeons. I am currently dying in the high 60s.
Yeah.
So there's a level gap. Like the gap between your level and monster level is significant in terms of damage they take and or dish out. So I've reached the point where I just cannot progress anymore. My gear is about 95% of optimum, I think, maybe 90. It's really good. Like getting better gear is really, really
perfect.
hard.
Yeah, it's not perfect rolls, but
right.
You're also,
so I cannot see my
garbage.
gear taking me from I think my max level is 68 so far that I've accomplished. Like, it's not going to take me from 68 to 100, which is where the max dungeons are at.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. Like, maybe 75 is where I'll get to just by improving my gear.
Parker, I don't know if you're aware of this, but the Nightmare Dungeons increase the base level, and the mobs are like level 50. So like a tier 5 Nightmare Dungeon is level 55 mobs.
Okay.
So tier 100, it's a level 150 mob. And
Got it.
every level the mob is above you, it gets a percentage increase to damage and health. And that increment stacks every level increase. And so it's like accumulating interest. So like, it stacks every single level. So if you're 50 levels below the mob, that is stacking 50 times on top of them. And so it's a noticeable gap in stats that you have to cross.
Yeah, like, it's interesting. Like, each one, like, one level you think wouldn't be a big deal, but it fucking is.
So every level matters more and more than the last.
Yeah,
So I can do, like, upper 50s. Like, and fighting mobs that are 15 levels above me pretty well. But when I crack 20, it's no longer fun, let's put it that way. Like, I am legitimately pushing content, not enjoying myself. So I said, fuck it, let's just go back and do the ones that, for which I'm clearing mobs at the appropriate pace, right? Like, I'm not taking too long, but it's not too easy. It's a good time. It's like, let's just do that. So I did that for like an hour. I'm like, okay, that was fun. Accomplished jack all, but it was fun. And I'm like, is this all the game is now? Just, grind a random dungeon, drop some loot, spend 10 minutes looking at it, squinting my eyes, reading every damn affix to see if it's an actual upgrade or not. I was like, I don't think that's going to keep me engaged for a whole hell of a long time.
I mean, that's Diablo in a nutshell, though, right?
It
That's
is,
what
but
all the Diablos have been.
I don't know. Like, I know you didn't like the Rift system in Diablo 3, but it always give you something like a little more to shoot for, right? Because you were pushing
Yeah,
as hard
because
as
there
you
was
could,
actually
you could
a
time it.
reason to push.
Yeah.
So, as far as I understand, there's no direct correlation to Nightmare, tier, and drops, right? Like, there's no
Correct.
guarantee or ability for you to increase the item level drops, and so you're
Once you're above
statistically-
85,
yeah.
mob
There's
level.
there's no reason to run anything above 85, so you should be fighting what tier 35 dungeons basically, right?
To do what though? Like that would just be so boring. I would like auto one shot every mob and never take damage.
Right, so the point would be to find the exact correlation at which you basically have maximum clear speed. When you do not slow down in this, you just whirlwind from the point A to point B on the map, and everything in the line dies. And then you would pick up all the loot and do another dungeon. Like that would be the ideal farming situation
Sure.
to get the most number of drops. And you'd probably do it in 4-person parties to get more spawns.
Yep.
And so yeah, that would be the most efficient way to play the game, to my understanding. But obviously, that's boring, and why would you do that?
Right. So anyway, I'm obviously not dropping the game, but I was like, you know what? Let's research some other like barbarian builds, and then now I can start scanning my loot to make that second build more viable. I'm not going to start a new tune with seasons on the horizon, and I think they're going to talk about this tomorrow.
So the seasons are supposed to keep people engaged, but we'll see.
I might create a new tune, with the new season, but I'm not sure I'm in love with seasonal content as a paradigm.
So,
did you feel like level 85 was the halfway point?
That's a good question. I want to say no. It was quicker from 85 to 100.
That's what it felt like watching you. I felt like the halfway point was more like level 60.
But they increased the XP in Nightmare Dungeons halfway through, so that threw that all
I'm also
away.
curious if that was the reason there wasn't a lull for you.
Yeah.
But,
no, it definitely hit at the
ahead.
right time for me.
Yeah. Parker, what were you going to say?
I know they're doing something with the seasonal stuff. I heard one of the things I heard is some sort of reset with your characters, or how much does it reset at the
100%.
If you play seasonal, you have to make a new character.
And then that character at the end of the season will transition to Permanent Realm.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. I guarantee that's how it's going to work.
Permanent
and
realm.
each season they'll try like different.
So there's like Doom, like just think of the base game as like Doom, Diablo Eternal. Like it is always present. The seasons are like pop-up time frames that you can play the game. They generally apply like new game features to them.
Yep.
So like let's say they added a new type of event called like a league. And like imagine whatever that could mean. At the end of the season, your character that played in that season will transition to Diablo Eternal, and then they might choose to make that league feature a game-wide state and not just in the season. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And then Season 2 will come around. You'll make a new character play in Season 2. Maybe in that they'll have, some other type of special event thing that happens, or new item type that drops, or new Paragon abilities. And then when at the end of that season, they might transition that to a game-wide effect. And so it's a way to just keep it fresh because you keep making new characters to try the new content. And then at the end of the season, they might make that content available to everyone, and then you can use it with your old characters. But basically, you're just playing the game over and over and over again, starting from scratch.
Yep. So it all depends on what content they add each league. Like, so Path of Exile is an RPG. It's probably the best RPG I've ever seen.
I think widely accepted as the best.
And they have done leagues since they started, and there were ladders every league, and a lot of the game content that they put forth every league was like game altering. It wasn't just, there's these new dungeons that pop up. It's like a completely new way to play the game.
Yeah.
So anyway, the first thing I did the day after I hit level 100 Diablo was I looked up Path of Exile 2 because I knew they were making an expansion, and apparently they're going to have an announcement this month with the beta potentially starting as soon as this month.
Yeah.
It's been in development for like 4 years, so we'll see.
Yeah, the last Path of Exile con, they said that they would be announcing the announcement for the release. And then this Path of Exile, they said, we're going to announce that we are going to release the Path of Exile 2. And they're like,
Yeah.
but not like when you're going to. Yeah, we are just announcing that we will release Path 2. And you're like, thanks, guys.
Yeah, I think the beta will be out soon and potentially full release later this year.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
But so Path of Exile 2, for anyone who doesn't know, is a free-to-play ARPG.
Mm-hmm. Parker, go ahead.
I would say I have taken the, for me, weird step of giving them, not hundreds, but tens of dollars, like 75 or 80 or something, maybe even 100, like over the time I played it. Like every month I played it, I would just buy a microtransaction to support the company because everything they do is free. And they fund their entire probably company off of the microtransactions and supporters, if that makes sense. So it's basically a tip jar that says, if you like what we have produced, give us some money. Diablo does the same thing, but they charge you $70 and then ask for microtransactions. So
yeah,
clearly I have not given them any extra money, but I just really, really like the company, Grinding Gear Games, that put up Path of Exile, and like I said, played it for thousands of hours, and it is incredible. I will probably be playing the shit out of Path of Exile 2 when it comes out here.
Parker, have you started playing yet?
Mm-mm.
No?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
I bought it,
So,
but I haven't played it yet.
My biggest problem with Diablo 4 Seasons is, first of all, they want you to restart new characters. If they want you to do that, I'm not super against it. My problem, though, is that there's the renown system. There's 5 regions. Each region has a ton of things you need to do.
Yeah.
And you get progress rewards. So you have to go around, find all the altars of Lilith, and then you have to go around, do every dungeon once, and then you have to go around and discover every city and waypoint, and you have to reveal every part of the map. Mm-hmm. And so you have to do and then you have 10 side quests in each realm, at least, if not more. And so you have to do all these things, and then they're talking about their plan is to reset that for seasons. The seasons are supposed to last 3 months, I want to say. And so the amount of work you would have to do, 3 months is barely enough time to hit level 100 for most people's play rates. Mm-hmm. And so, it took me 2 solid weeks just to do all the renown. And so if it's going to take me 2 weeks to do all the renown, and then 3 months to, try and level a character, it's I don't even have time to do all this stuff. And you want me to walk around the map. And a lot of it's just busy work stuff. It's not interesting things. Doing each dungeon, I could understand. But, you want me to walk to the same secret locations and find the same altars of Lilith every 3 months? That's just pointless busy work. I'm not interested in doing that. And so I'm super not in on the seasons unless they get rid of that shit. If they're hey, you get to keep your renown because obviously you already did it and that would be stupid, then I'd be interested in playing seasons. But other than that, there's no way I'm going to do it.
So you'll still play the game, you just won't take part in the seasonal content.
Yeah, but because all my friends are going to be playing seasonal, that means I won't have anybody to play with. So it means I'm going to quit playing their game. It's basically what it's going to mean. It's just ridiculous to me that they would basically give you 2 weeks worth of busy work every 3 months and expect people to be okay with that.
I agree.
Well, do you have to get all the renown every reset?
No, you don't have to, but it's a lot of the game. It gets you a bunch of stats, a bunch of points. It gets you 10% of your character's total stats by the end of your character. It's a lot.
Ah, okay.
Because you get, 20 Paragon points just from doing Renown. Not to mention it's 5 or 10 skill points on your ability skills. It's a bunch of potion slots, orb slots. It's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. You could probably just map it out and do half of it and get the most important ones if you wanted to save time, and skip on some of the basic intelligence you don't need or whatnot. But I agree, it would be much better not to have to do it again.
Yeah, it's just so silly to me.
Yeah, there's some parts of that model that are. There's parts of the model that tell me already I spent some money on it, and I'll be able to put some hours into it, and I won't hate it. But it's not going to be a game like Destiny where I'll just keep be able to come back to it over and over and over again and play for
because
a calendar year.
The Destiny seasons keep you involved over a long period of time,
and they don't make you ever go back and do something again that you did before.
Yeah,
it's no.
I imagine they're going to change it because so many people are going to be pissed because I've already heard there's a big outcry that it was dumb and people didn't want to do it. But also, like, we assume they're going to increase the rate at which you can level in the game. Like, when Diablo first came out, I want to say it was like 3 months to get to max level. Or Diablo 3 anyway. And then by the time the final season came out for Diablo 3, you could get to max level in under an hour. Like, it was that level of difference. And so I can only imagine if it's going to be a 3-month cycle and the average person can't even get to max level before the season ends, that's going to be pretty stupid. So they're probably going to increase the rate at which people level. Or they might just increase the XP in seasons. That way you can get to max level faster in seasons, but the regular jog is still long. So it might encourage people to play in seasons to get their characters leveled faster.
That makes sense.
But yeah, the most annoying parts of the game is like starting at level 1, where you have to hit people with a stick because you're not even in a class yet, and then like go around and collect all the stuff, and they just give you all the stuff. You don't even have to start at level 1. You basically get to start at level 10. And it's just like, yes, that's exactly what I want. Anyway, so what movie category do we want to do next week?
Start with something you can appreciate. I'll let you decide.
Superhero movies. That'd be the most obvious one.
That makes sense.
So do some research
like
on that one.
I feel like sci-fi movies is where we're going to differ the most, because sci-fi has a lot of different styles within it.
I just can't decide if it's going to be Superman 2, 3, or 4. So.
Oof. Wait, what?
You just said next week is superhero movies, right?
No, I'm just confused as to why Superman 1 wasn't on the list.
Okay, that's shit.
Oh, okay, was it? I feel like that's...
I'm kidding.
I mean, I haven't watched the movies in a long time, but I feel like Superman 4... Was it 3 or 4? Which one had Richard Pryor?
I have no idea. Oh, we should also do like our bottom one.
Like the worst?
Yes.
Ooh.
Or worst that we've seen or whatnot in that category. Yeah, let's do top 3, bottom 1. So are we doing superheroes next?
Yeah, let's plan for superheroes. I'll tell Jeremy about it tomorrow. We'll talk about it tomorrow a little bit.
Yeah.
We'll all be there.
Okay.
Unless Jeremy's still dead, then he won't be.
Yeah.
My favorite part of this is going to be voting, having the fans vote on whose list is the best. I'm definitely doing that. And I might even put up the poll without our names on it and see if people will vote before they listen to the episode. And that way we'll have some unbiased voting, because I feel like we're gonna have some fanboys. They're just gonna vote for one person.
Word.
Yeah. My OnlyFans is growing, so.
It is. Onlyfeet.com. All right. You guys good? You want to do anything else? All right, we're out of here. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.